everybody, from Common Room Radio, I'm Sarah K. Pizant, and I believe in Gotham City.
I'm Alistair Stevens, and I believe in Harvey Dent.
I'm Vinton Bain, and I believe in Batman.
We all believe in Batman.
Everyone believes in Batman.
I'm not alone in this.
And welcome to Excelsior. It is our second episode here at Bat Month at Excelsior. This week we are doing Batman the Long Halloween by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. You guys want to talk to me about this comic?
Well, of course, we recently discussed Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale's work on Superman for All Seasons.
We sure did, yeah.
This is a very different kind of book.
Yes, it is.
It made me appreciate Superman for All Seasons a lot more. That's not to say anything negative about The Long Halloween for me personally, but I like very much seeing this shift in Tim Sale's style. I think that...
Yeah, I appreciated that we didn't have any thumb face this time around.
A few thumb faces.
Yeah, Sale's style does fit the noir style a lot better.
Yeah.
Even though his atmospheres in Man for All Seasons were beautiful.
Astonishing, yes.
I think he's better with the people that he draws are really fitted to this like mob lifestyle. Like, he's very good at that.
It's really interesting having talked about Superman for All Seasons and discussing in particular the rigidity of the panel layouts, how we have these huge splash pages and these huge horizons, appropriately enough, of course, for Smallville in particular. Here we have this very fractured panel layout. It feels like a completely different style. He's an enormously adaptable artist.
Right. It reminded me a lot of the Black Widow series that we read recently, where you just had like so much going on in like a single couple or like a single page or like just two pages where there were like just all of these panels going on and so much action. I really liked that quite a bit.
Yeah. We should mention that this is kind of a sequel comic book to Frank Miller's Year One Batman, where he came up with an origin story for Batman that was very particular, and he's mostly stuck around. Of course, Batman's gone through iterations since then, but a lot of it has stuck around. Miller came up with a lot of ideas that were really ingrained in the comics after he left, and this was something that Archie Goodwin, editor at DC at the time, wanted to explore more and see what happened to these crime families that were introduced or at least highlighted in Frank Miller's story, and he approached Loeb and Sale and said, can you do something with this?
Yeah.
He said, can you revisit this material, the gangsters? I think you two would be perfect for this. And so they decided to do this tale that is 13 issues, came out over the course of a year between Halloween to Halloween, basically. I don't know the exact publishing dates off the top of my head.
Not quite in real time, but close enough.
Yeah. So thematically, they went with the holidays in between, covering 13 issues based off of holidays and a birthday. You can count that as a holiday. And it was actually the often Marvel creator Mark Waid, who we've talked about on the podcast a little bit before, who suggested that they actually explore Harvey Dent's backstory, because this wasn't something that had ever been really explored very much before this point in the comics.
Yeah. So to put this in some chronological perspective, Miller's Batman Year One came out between February and May of 1987. Batman The Long Halloween came out between December of 96 and December of 1997. And Superman for All Seasons came out between September and December of 1998.
Right.
So this is right before Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale went off to redefine Superman for the modern era and channel a lot of Norman Rockwell.
Yes.
No Norman Rockwell being channeled in The Long Halloween.
None whatsoever.
Yeah. Zero Rockwell.
Yeah.
Right. So had either of you read this before?
Absolutely
I had read it years ago, actually. And I have to say that returning to it, I was startled by how much better it was. I remembered it being very good.
Yeah.
But it really surprised me with how tight it is as a story, how intentional it is as a story, how much less dark it was than I remembered it being.
Yeah, me too.
And also how much more consciously and deliberately and explicitly it is a noir story. This is Batman noir. This is as close to the perfect kind of realization of that potential side of Batman's character as you're likely to see. I'm probably going to be talking a lot about noir over the course of the next hour and a half.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Coming back to it, I ended up liking it more and saw a lot more noir in it, and it was a lot less dark than I remembered. I remember when I first read through it, I think I read through it pretty quickly, and it was my first take was something like that, and I still wasn't familiar with Sale at the time. This was quite a while ago, and so I just wasn't sure what to think of it. My first run through, having just come off of normal Batman comics into this, I was like, this is weird. But going back to it, I enjoyed it a lot more, so I upped my review rating on Goodreads.
Oh, that's excellent.
Excellent. Good. Vin, can you give us a quick gloss of Batman Year One, kind of the story that primed the pump for all of these modern Batman stories?
Yeah, so it's been a really long time since I have actually read Year One, but the details that stick out to me as a general synopsis is basically this is a telling of Batman rising to be Batman alongside Jim Gordon rising to be Jim Gordon, and then the two of them basically forming their partnership. It gives us, I think this is the first place that we have Harvey Dent becoming this district attorney figure rather than just starting out as a criminal Two-Face and what we knew of him from the comics at that point. This gives him a deeper backstory, but it didn't explore him as much. It just put him in that role and didn't really say how he became Two-Face from there. So that's what our comic today is going to do.
Making Harvey Dent a tragic figure for the entire DC universe. Yeah.
And it touched a little bit on Selena Kyle, Catwoman, and it also actually introduced a main character from this book, Carmine Falcone, the Roman. Yeah. And so that was his first appearance, and that was really what made Goodwin want to continue that story is what happened to this Falcone guy? Yeah. We want to find out about that. So that's when this story came
Previously, of course, this material has been touched on by Christopher Nolan in Batman Begins.
Right.
Year One acted very much as a springboard for that story too. This gives us a much more kind of DC consistent version of Batman's origin, in which we have either large elements of his rogues gallery being introduced in the course of this book, or reintroduced in the course of this book. I guess. Yeah. We get to spend a lot of time with Calendar Man, which I'm always fond of.
Yeah.
Sarah, you're sighing a lot over there. I think we should probably preface this conversation a little bit by saying this is not your book.
This is not my book. This is not my comic. Like, I don't know what I thought, but I mean, just at one point, my husband came into the room while I was reading it and he asked me how it was going. And I told him that I was so bored. I was just so bored reading this comic. And, he also said, it's not your bombastic, normal superhero tale. And it doesn't fall into like the spaces that like Hellcat or Unstoppable Wasp fall into, which bring me so much joy.
Not a lot of crossover.
Not a lot of crossover.
Let me check the polls real quick. Yep. No one voted that this was going to be your book. I'm surprised.
I'm so glad. There's not a single gay character in here. What is Sarah even doing here?
I do think it's fair to note, though, that this was released, as we said, over the course of a year. And I think that's the appropriate pace at which one should read
Abso-friggin-lutely.
Because sitting down to read the trade paperback, it's 360 pages, you guys. That's that's
and it gets really repetitive whenever you're reading it like that because initially it was coming out like every month over the course of a year. You're being reminded of who these people are, but whenever you're reading it, you're like, you just told me who Falcone was 10 pages ago.
There is, even in the trade paperback, like a poetic element to that repetition. That we keep getting these same ideas and these same lines.
To me, it just
like
reads
verbatim.
It reads like old noir detective stories where the narrator is just constantly like, she walked into the office. I'm like, I can see what she's doing.
I see that she walked into the office, Batman. No, I know who Falcone is. Yeah, no, I get it.
Oh, but did you know that he's untouchable?
I know that he's the untouchable crime boss of Gotham. Yeah. And his daughter, Sophia Falcone Gigante.
Wow.
Gigante.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very fun to say. So before we continue too much further, I think it's time to flip a VHS.
Please.
It's a Halloween themed story that for some reason features every holiday. And who doesn't love holidays? And what do you think of when you think of holidays? Why, the Mafia, of course. And no Mafia story is complete without a crime-fighting vigilante in a bat suit and his feline-suited cat burglar friend. It is Halloween-themed, after all. The more costumes, the better. Witness an unnecessary display of Batman's rogues gallery, who just can't be kept in prison.
Oh
Seriously, who's in charge of keeping people in and out of Arkham? You had one job! I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. Enjoy this story and you'll be a made man. But if I hear you didn't like it, you'll be sleeping with the fishes. Bada bing, bada boom. It's The Godfather Part 4, Christopher Nolan Origins.
Now I just know that Selena Kyle picked up the sexy cat costume at the Halloween discount store.
Which is why it doesn't look like most of her other costumes.
So dumb in this comic, you guys.
I like it.
Really?
I know Catwoman fans specifically who love this costume.
Sure.
I remember hating this costume the first time I read it, but this time it was kind of endearing. I kind of liked it.
No, I don't like it.
There's something about it. And I can look at it and go, yeah, this is over the top. This is silly. And I'm like, I'm reading a comic book about a guy who dresses up like a bat. I have to throw those arguments out the window.
I mean, it was cool seeing Catwoman's 9-pack, I guess.
Also, I really like like the taller the Batman ears go. Like they either got to be real short or real tall in my book.
Oh yeah, no. They're either like little nubs or like 6 feet long.
That's right.
I'm looking at the first splash page that we get of Batman fighting Catwoman, and yeah, not only does she have frankly preposterous cat ears, but also whiskers. And
it's not
looks
great.
like bandages on the one arm, but also maybe bracelets on the other.
Yeah, I don't think they're bandages. I think that her gloves and her boots both fit baggy for some reason. They're like all wrinkled.
It's
very
choice.
90s because she's got all these multiple bracelets.
That was what I kept thinking every time, like going through this art and seeing it. I was like, oh man, comics in the 90s looked awful.
Look at the detail though on Batman's utility belt. That's real nice. Those are some pouches right there.
There's so many pouches.
And so many muscles. Liefeld would be proud.
It's a lot of muscles.
While you can see Catwoman's feet in that panel, you can't see Batman. So it also feels like Liefeld likes to hide the feet. He's not so good at drawing with the feet.
Feet are hard to draw.
Yeah.
I know
Rob Liefeld
this.
agrees with you.
Yeah.
Surprising number of characters spent the entire 90s wreathed in smoke, but only up to the cuff. It's fine.
So let's very quickly talk about the creators. Obviously, Eisner Award-winning film and television writer, producer, and comic book writer Jeff Loeb writing here. Mm-hmm. Eisner Award-winning comic artist Tim Sale on the art, and Richard Starkings is in his company, Comic Craft, I should say, did the lettering again. Just like in Superman for All Seasons.
Yeah, this is the entire creative team, I guess. Yeah.
However, we do have a different colorist. The colorist here is Gregory Wright, a comic book editor, writer, and colorist known for a handful of work with Spider-Man, The Defenders, Fantastic Four, Deathlock, Silver Sable, Superman, and Batman.
Wasn't Deathlock the guy in the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yes. Very different than his comics. He would become more like the comics.
Oh, okay.
But still not exactly the same. They took out the whole future thing.
Yes.
Wait, what? No time.
Yeah, no time.
Someday we'll talk about that first season of Marvel's Agents of
He
S.H.I.E.L.D.
is an award-winning colorist from Comic Buyer's Guide Fan Award for favorite colors for both 1990 and 96.
Oh, nice. Well, congratulations, guy.
So, Vin, we discussed how this was inspired by Frank Miller's Batman Year One, and we've talked about how this is kind of a continuing origin story for Batman. Mm-hmm. Batman's origin story for me has always been kind of shrouded in darkness and smoke. Yeah. Can you give us like a brief rundown of what it is that makes Batman Batman?
Yeah, this is something that I just think people don't know enough about. And in an effort to inform our listeners of an often neglected part of Batman, we need to talk briefly about his origins. So Bruce Wayne was born to Dr. Thomas Wayne and his wife, Martha.
Martha, you said?
Yeah, Martha. Yeah. I think there's another Martha maybe in the DC universe.
Doesn't ring a bell.
I don't know. No, nothing is striking me. But again, like all of this, I didn't know any of this. Like, please keep going.
Anyways, these are two very wealthy and charitable Gotham City socialites. Bruce was brought up in the splendor of Wayne Manor and led a happy and privileged existence until the age of 8 when his parents were brutally murdered by a small-time criminal named Joe Chill.
Oh.
Okay. So they dropped like a lot of hints throughout this. I mean, they straight up say like, my slain parents, my slain parents. It was so weird. I don't know, like, do they focus more on that in Batman Year One? Like, if I had read that first, would I have understood this more? Or
I don't really know if it's touched on there, actually.
That's so weird.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it really is. Anyways, they were leaving the movie theater. They were killed, and orphaned Bruce Wayne had to figure out what to do from there. He engaged in a intense intellectual and physical training, promising an oath to protect his city from the evil that took his parents away. However, he realized that those skills alone wouldn't be enough, saying that criminals are a superstitious and cowardly lot, so his disguise must be able to strike terror in their hearts. He must become a creature of the night, black and terrible. And as if a response to this, a bat flies through his window, inspiring Bruce to become the Batman.
The Batman.
Dumb. Wait, who sent this bat to him? Was it like a mystic? Is this like an animal totem thing? Like with
the Lord?
Oh, okay. The Lord sent forth the bat. Got it. Back on board. And lo, the bat did lower from the sky and
Frank
say,
Miller
"This is my
disagree
Bruce
with
Wayne,
you
in
about
whom
that.
I am well pleased."
And on like the 4 billionth day, the Lord created Batman. And he said it was good.
So Year One features a 25-year-old Bruce Wayne basically returning from his Rumspringa around the world, where he has learned everything that there is to learn about being a fighty man. He comes back to Gotham and decides, you know what, though? I just saw that discount Halloween store. I'm going to stop by and see if they've got anything left over.
That's right.
They did have a Spider-Man costume left over, ironically, but he figured that would be impinging upon, the distinguished competitions.
He almost bought a cat suit, but then Selena Kyle was there and she grabbed it first.
He would have looked so good.
He would have.
I will be Catman.
but like a big cat, like a savannah predator cat.
Crime will be allergic to this cat.
You rub his belly, but then he scratches you.
That's true of Batman.
Like a cat.
So some basic facts about this before we continue on. Like we mentioned with Man for All Seasons, Loeb likes to take homages to other stories. And one of the things that he does here that's really clear is that he's doing a lot from The Godfather in these stories.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I've never seen The Godfather.
I haven't in a very long time, so I barely remember.
Spin-off episode of Excelsior.
Okay.
So unconnected, but I'm down for it. Now, I have seen people accuse him of just stealing from The Godfather. And of course, he gets accused of this a lot because how closely he homages things. Sure. But I tend to give him the benefit of the doubt because I feel like he's trying to bring a connection to the reader so that he doesn't actually have to dive into what everything is in these stories. So we can just go, hey, you seen The Godfather? It's like that.
I've never seen him passively recycle something in its entirety. I've only ever seen him deconstruct or reconstruct these elements that he borrows, whether that's elements of Superman's mythology, of classical mythology, of, the mythology of the American Midwest in the 20th century in Superman for All Seasons, or here, all of these crime narratives, all of these mafia narratives, all of these noir narratives. He does so much with the source material that it is as though he is back in the medieval period. It was actually very unfashionable for writers to make their own stories. No one wanted to hear a story that someone had invented because really, what is the value in that? So for the better part of 1,000 years in Western Europe, the thing to do was to retell old stories, to the point that Chaucer actually invented stories of his own, but attributed them to a fictional Roman writer saying, no, I didn't write these stories. I'm just retelling them for you.
That's amazing.
And I feel as though Jeff Loeb has some of that spirit to him. He is an adapter and a filter and a reflexive commentary on the stories that have come before, which is a really interesting position for a comic book writer to be in. So often, new writers will start on a title and seek to redefine it by doing exactly what has been done before.
Right.
Jeff Loeb never falls into that trap, at least in the work that I've seen.
Yeah. And for me, it works because it gives the story roots that he doesn't then have to explain.
Exactly right.
It sets it in a setting that most people are already familiar with. And you're like, oh, I know other stories
Even
like
having
this.
never seen The Godfather, like, I got it. Like, I saw what he was doing.
By cultural osmosis, you have absorbed the story.
I understood. Yeah.
Which also, and this is perfect for DC continuity, makes these stories feel mythic.
Yeah.
They feel like they are stories that we have heard before, stories that we have been told from the cradle onward, which is entirely appropriate because Batman should feel like Hercules or Perseus or Theseus. He should feel like a character of great antiquity, even though he isn't. I love what Loeb has done here, leveraging both the established continuity of the DCU, kind of leaning on Frank Miller's work in year one, and also pulling from these mafia narratives. I think he's done fantastic work.
I agree. Batman: The Long Halloween has received widespread critical acclaim and is praised as one of the definitive Batman stories to date, even though there are a lot of people out there who do say it's quite overrated. IGN ranked.
Okay, so I want to jump in really quick. We just mentioned how like this book is not for me. I think objectively this is a very well done story and a very well done comic. It doesn't tick
hit any
of my
notes.
boxes. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Like I'm able to look at this and be like, no, this is good, and I think that people should. I mean, I think that it deserves its laurels, but it's just not the personal like Sarah K. Pizzant laurels are not going to land on this comic.
IGN ranked Long Halloween a number 4 on the list of the 25 best Batman graphic novels, so that's about usually how it ends up.
What was number
the top
1? Was it
5.
The Killing Joke?
I don't know.
It's usually The Dark Knight. It's usually
which I don't fully agree with, but we can talk about that another time. Because now we have to go through this whole story because we have 13 issues to get through, guys, and that's something that's going to take a little bit of time. I did try to make my notes as collapsed as possible. But
we're not going to be going into the usual depth here on Excelsior.
There's still a lot to talk to.
We should say before we get into this run that there are 2 sequels to this comic book series.
Really?
Batman Dark Victory came out between 1999 and 2000. That's a 14-issue series featuring the serial killer The Hangman. Striking visuals, really impressive visual work. But then they followed that up with Catwoman When in Rome, which was a 6-issue arc that came out in 2004 featuring Catwoman and Riddler. And the art in that book is preposterous. It looks fantastic.
Really?
So those 2 books actually take place at the same time.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
how interesting.
I think, 2 years maybe after the
I
events
haven't
of the Long
read
Halloween?
either of them in a very long time, so I don't remember them at all, but I will talk a little bit about them as we get to the end of this because it relates.
Yeah. Let's get into it.
All right. So this first issue is subtitled Crime, and it's a double-sized issue, being twice the length of all the rest of the issues that we're going to be talking about today.
I'm going to ask you guys a question here. How do you feel about double-sized comic books? Because I've never thought about it before. And obviously when I was buying standard issues, when I was buying floppies in the comic book store, I loved a double-sized issue because who wouldn't? That's more comic for your money. I am in. Now, particularly when I'm reading in trade format, I feel as though double-length issues always run too long. They always feel as though they're padded.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I love the concision of, and I think this is absolutely true of The Long Halloween. It feels as though the first one just takes a really long time.
Yeah.
But then each subsequent issue feels tighter and more focused for me.
I don't know if I've ever noticed, honestly, because almost everything I read is in trade paperback format. And so I don't know if it's ever really affected me because I mean, I'm reading the entire book, so.
Are you mindful of the issue breaks when you're reading a
almost
trade?
Never.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, if they don't, like in this, only because it was like, here's the subtitle, here's the cover. Now we're in Thanksgiving. Now it's St. Patrick's Day. Now it's whatever the hell. But usually, no, like when we were doing Mockingbird, for example, it just all ran together for me in not in a bad way. Like I enjoyed it, but just
in a good way.
Almost never. I just don't really pay attention to it. But I also read comics like I read books is the other thing. I don't read comics the way that you ought to read comics, which is like really, I have to work to like take in the art. I'm generally like just going through and reading all of the dialogue and then moving along.
I think what you've described is also a distinction between, the late 1990s and the mid 2010s, because we've crossed the threshold now where writers are writing primarily for the trade. The single issue is supposed to be serialized and episodic in a way that it wasn't even in the 1990s. Yeah. A year for the series, you guys. A year.
Yeah. So there's a lot to get through here, a lot of setup. So let's try to move quickly. Our book starts out on the hottest day of the year in June at the wedding of Johnny Vitti, nephew of mob boss Carmine the Roman Falcone. Carmine leads a powerful crime family in Gotham, and they need a way to launder their money. He wants to use the Gotham City Bank and has influenced a number of its leaders to accept his family's business. Here at the wedding, he tries to convince Bruce Wayne to lend his vote as well, but Bruce refuses, despite a referenced relationship between both their fathers. And this is a very Godfather-esque opening at the wedding and everything. We get a lot of crime drama, mafia story tropes in the very beginning of this and throughout the story, but a lot right here at the front.
Page 1, I believe in Gotham City, says Carmine Falcone. I mean, the idea that a mob boss can be representative of the spirit of the city, or could even purport to be representative of the spirit of the city, is a really noir idea. What differentiates noir storytelling is that the world itself is corrupt. There is no justice. There is no hope. The world is bad. We have to protect only what we can. And Jeff Loeb manages to subvert that and play with that in a number of really interesting ways, which I genuinely think are only of interest, are only fascinating to people who are steeped in noir culture. Steeped in noir storytelling, because he's doing anti-noir for a lot of this book. And then despite Batman's best efforts, it turns into a noir, like a true noir right at the end. It's so striking. But yeah, that opening splash page, the art style from Tim Sale, these deep shadows, it's amazing. This is a book that I read digitally, and I regret that. I kind of wish that I read the physical book, because reading on a screen, the colors never have the depth that you want to have.
Of course
they never
not,
have the saturation. The whites never pop the way that they should. The blacks never, depress the entire page the way that they should.
What's funny about that is I've actually went in my research, came across a couple of reviews that really complained about how sometimes you couldn't really tell what was going on the page. And when they posted the images, I was like, well, you read it digitally because you can clearly see this on the page. Because they're like, is that Scarecrow? I don't know. And I'm like, this is very clear on the actual print page.
Yeah, Tim Sale's doing a lot of very fine line work in this comic, which is very different from Superman for All Seasons. But it works beautifully for me. But what works most effectively is the use of light and shadow right here in the beginning. And of course, we'll talk about that a little bit when we get to Harvey Dent, you guys, who oftentimes stands with his face half in shadow.
Yeah.
It's weird.
So
For some reason, I'm not sure why. Bruce leaves, listening in on the conversation for a moment, but is seen by Carmine's son, Alberto Falcone, called the Good Son, and Bruce decides to leave the party. Alberto tells his father Bruce was snooping, but Carmine tells him to keep his nose out of it. On his way out, Bruce runs into Selena Kyle, and after dancing, the two start to leave, but they run into District Attorney Harvey Dent, who had been jumped just after being caught taking down license plates at the party.
Quick question. what does a district attorney do?
Apparently take down license plates of rich people at mob parties.
I feel like Harvey Dent might not be fulfilling the typical role. See, it's this fiction district attorney. It's the way that fictional lawyers solve crimes.
Yeah.
Whereas real life lawyers don't solve crimes. That's not what they're for, you guys. It's just, I don't know. I love Harvey Dent. I believe in him.
Yeah. As Bruce Wayne's about to say, I believe in Harvey Dent.
I'm sorry, but the relationship between Selena Kyle and Bruce Wayne, is that is she in Batman Year One? Do we get more of that? Because she's kind of like just tossed right in here.
Right. More specifically, in Batman Year One, Selena Kyle becomes Catwoman because she sees Batman in action. So she is, she didn't fall out of a window and then get revived by a bunch of cats? I won't hear a bad word said about Batman Returns. That's a great movie.
As a matter of fact, we're going to possibly be talking about that soon. I'll have lots of good things to say because I really enjoyed that movie.
Selena Kyle in the frame of Year One is exactly one of those people who has been inspired by Batman. This idea that Batman is actually the problem with Gotham City.
Well, he is, though. We covered that in Lego Batman.
From some perspectives, that is true.
From a certain point of view.
That is true. But yes, explicitly, Catwoman has started her life of crime because of Batman.
Yep.
Neat.
Yeah.
And I'll talk a little bit more about her in a moment.
Okay.
So the two make sure that Harvey is okay, and then Bruce bids Selena goodnight, saying, I believe in Harvey Dent. And then we cut to Gordon and Dent talking, Jim Gordon, and we get this funny line that always makes me think of Hamilton every time I read it, when Dent is like, Falcone has us outmanned, outgunned, outclassed. And then Gordon's like, I have a friend who wants to help. And I just want to yell, Hamilton?
A right-hand man?
A right-hand
what you have,
I'm going to need a right-hand man? Yes. It's Batman. I don't know if it's Batman or Hamilton, but we're about to find out.
Is Lin-Manuel Miranda a secret Batman fan?
I could believe that.
Yeah, me too.
I could believe that about Lin.
He seems like the best kind of giant dork. So probably so, right? Yeah.
Neither Selena nor Bruce truly leaves, both coming back in their costume guises as Batman and Catwoman, respectively. The two start to fight, but they are quickly interrupted by Carmine's men firing at them, and the two escape, and Carmine puts $1 million bounty out for either of them after his mob rival, Salvatore Maroni, mocks him. Mm-hmm. And Sal Maroni first appeared in Detective Comics number 66, was created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane, while Carmine Falcone, as mentioned, was created by Frank Miller and appearing in Batman 404, which is the Year One story where it starts off. Yeah. Catwoman was created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger as well, made her debut in The Cat in Batman number 1, spring of 1940. She was created to be a thief, cat burglar.
Oh, I get it.
And a very complicated love interest to Batman, and has remained this way, growing as a character and taking a more prominent role in the comics over time.
Yeah. And yet she's still kind of the same character.
Yeah.
She's still kind of the cat burglar who also wants to jump Batman.
Yep.
Right. But
and she has that complicated, is she really a bad guy? Is she kind of a hero? Catwoman was ranked 11th on IGN's top 100 villains of all time, but also 20th on the 100 comic book heroes of all time.
That's confusing.
So she always has that back and forth. Is she a hero? Is she a villain? She's not fully a hero. We can say that.
To me, like she's a villain. I mean, it seems
it's Gotham, so
everyone's a villain.
I gotta say, my problem with Catwoman is primarily that, as I've mentioned before on the Excelsior podcast, I was a Marvel kid growing up, and I read a lot of X-Men, and I read a lot of Spider-Man. So for me, Catwoman was the Black Cat, Felicia Hardy, who is one of my favorite characters in Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery. The relationship is exactly the same. The character is exactly the same. I'm surprised that no one has filed any kind of lawsuit about these characters. But Felicia, for me, always has the edge.
Modern day, most recently in comics, they've kind of taken alternate paths, because the Black Cat now hates Peter Parker, wants to see him dead, Spider-Man / Peter Parker, and is becoming
Peter Parker is Spider-Man?
Sorry. I'm so sorry. Also, Santa Claus isn't real. But she's become a crime boss in her own right, and is really vindictive and kind of evil in the comics right now.
Okay.
Whereas
she also fights Hellcat at some point in the Kate Leth run, I believe.
Probably so.
Yeah,
I can see that. I haven't read that far. But
Black Cat versus Hellcat?
Yeah.
There.
Catwoman in Tom King's run has been shown to be more of a sympathetic hero type in a lot of ways, doing some self-sacrificing here and there. And most recently, I'm not going to give spoilers because the most recent issue did give an answer to this, but it was all over the news that Batman did propose to her.
Right.
What?
Now, you've been reading the Tom King run. This is the War of Jokes and Riddles that is currently happening in Batman. What is your recommendation for that book?
I highly recommend it. It's fantastic. It does kind of what we're seeing here, where it goes back and tells an early Batman story. Sure. So where it's basically he has fought the Joker and the Riddler a few times, but not that often. So he's still trying to figure those characters out. And this is pretty early on, but still when there's lots of villains to be had. And he's telling a dark secret of his to Catwoman that he wants her to know. And the only thing that no one else knows about him, he wants her to know before she answers his question of his proposal.
That's very good. I have to say that looking at DC, I guess it was post New 52 that the Batman titles just kind of were ascendant. They are, I think, by common consensus, the best books that DC has been putting out really over the last 5 years.
Scott Snyder just did such a great job with his run, and then Tom King picked up, and it was so radically different. I think it gave a lot of people pause, including me, loving Tom King. But by the time issue 20 rolled around, I was just like, this has been the best Batman I've ever read.
Yeah. Great. Okay, well, maybe we'll talk about some War of Jokes and Riddles.
Maybe so.
In the near future.
It'll be a very interesting discussion to be had there. Batman chases Catwoman, but loses her as the bat signal lights up in the sky. And he has this nice quote here. I wonder if it's true what they say about having 9 lives. After tonight, she's going to need all of them. The narration's so noir. I love it.
It really is.
It's super noir,
great. Yeah.
Captain Gordon tells Harvey Dent that Captain. Yeah. Which I had to get used to because I literally said commissioner through half my notes and I realized he's only a captain here. I got to go back.
That's not the thing that threw me. The thing that threw me is his wife's name is Barbara, and I've always forgotten that. But Barbara Gordon is not Jim Gordon's wife, you guys. I know who Barbara Gordon is.
Now, I have a serious question. Yeah, okay, so Bigo is... so Barbara Gordon, a.k.a. Batgirl, in this series is called his niece...
Is his niece in many continuities.
Okay, all right. For some reason, I thought it was his daughter.
Sometimes it is.
Sometimes usually is.
Wait,
sometimes
what?
Yes.
This doesn't make any sense.
Comic books.
Okay.
You have to
also
DC
comic books.
Yeah. Since 1999, the DC universe has been like fully rebooted maybe 4 times. So we get to reset all of these stories again and again and come in fresh.
Yep. It's kind of like Fox's take with the X-Men. Yeah. Every new comic we put out, that's now canon.
That's the only canon.
Just ignore it. This is new canon.
Yes. You're a lunatic. Be quiet. It basically all depends on whether or not we want to leverage Jim Gordon as a family man or as a man who didn't have a family because he was too committed to his work. Like, which version of Jim Gordon do you want? Because that
Why can't be both?
Well, because those two things are mutually exclusive.
I don't think they are.
Okay.
Anyways, Captain Gordon tells Harvey Dent that he has a friend who wants to help, and Batman joins the two on the rooftop where they talk about Carmine Falcone acting like he is above the law. The three make a pact to bring Falcone. I keep saying Falcone, but it's Falcone.
It's Falcone.
But here's the thing. The first time I ever read this, I just read Falcone because I didn't know how to pronounce it. And so it will forever be stuck in my head that way. I'll apologize. That's just where I'm at. Bringing him to justice by bending the rules if necessary, but never breaking them. Batman disappears, leaving a ledger that he found at Falcone's.
The panel of Batman appearing silhouetted against the bat signal is just fantastic with his arms folded saying, gentlemen.
It's really very good.
And Dent calls him Bats. Which to me is like, that's the Joker's signature thing. Yeah. You don't get to do that, actually. Harvey, you don't get to do that. It's pretty good. I love this entire sequence.
We get a comment here about how hard the police job is on a marriage, kind of like we talked about with Gordon and Dent both. And they talk about Dent having a bit of a rough patch in his marriage currently, and that'll come up in the story a little bit. It should be mentioned at this point that Jim Gordon debuted in the first panel of Detective Comics number 27 in May of 39, alongside Batman's first appearance, where he is referred to simply as Commissioner Gordon. The character was created by Bill Finger, but credited to Bob Kane, unsurprisingly. Commissioner Gordon made his debut as an ally of Batman, making him the first Batman supporting character ever to be introduced. And the character's name was taken from the earlier pulp character of Commissioner James W. Wildcat Gordon, also known as the Whisperer, created in 1936.
No, I'm sorry. Your nickname's already Wildcat. You don't need another nickname, particularly not the Whisperer.
The Wildcat Whisperer.
The Wildcat Whisperer. Commissioner Gordon.
And we get the most Batman-y Batman quote of them all. I made a promise on the grave of my slain parents. Jesus. I would not rest until Gotham City was washed clean of the evil that took their lives. There could be no compromises.
So does he mean the guy. Okay, who shot his parents again?
Joe Chill.
Is he talking about Joe Chill specifically, or does he just mean like evil in general?
Idea in this kind of Batman story, again, multiple strands of Batman stories. Sometimes it's the Joker that killed Batman's parents.
Wait, what?
I'm looking at Tim Burton. It's fine. Don't worry. We'll talk about that.
Joe Chill, kind of like Joker.
Yeah, sure.
Joe Chill became the Joker?
But the idea is that Joe Chill is like a no-mark mugger. He's just like a product of the crime in Gotham City. He is a consequence of the crime that riddles the city.
Sure.
Not like a cause of it. Sometimes in a Batman story, you can do really interesting things with the distinction between supervillains and criminals. Sometimes you can't or don't.
Right.
But certainly the idea of Joe Chill just being nothing, just being a guy who's down on his luck, who's desperate, who takes this extraordinary action because
he wanted the pearls.
To it. Yeah, the pearls in particular. Yes.
Which in this story, apparently Bruce had convinced his mother to put those pearls on.
Like
which was
that.
It's a good detail. I like it quite a lot. Yeah.
It really adds to the tragedy of it all. In July, at a board meeting for the Gotham City Bank, Bruce Wayne pushes against the other board members who are in favor of dealing with the Falcone family. And we get that first beat of "Somewhere in the City, I know the Roman is smiling."
Yeah.
Unable to persuade them against it, Batman visits the bank president, demanding that he keeps Falcone's money out of the bank. And the president resigns, leaving Bruce Wayne a place to step in.
We're really leveraging this idea that Batman and Bruce Wayne are two people kind of working together. I don't quite know how we get that because Bruce Wayne is 3 times whiter than any other character in this comic book. That's fine. But I like this very much. Batman going to the president of the bank and saying no, so he resigns, so Bruce Wayne can step in. That's pretty good. Like, again, this is very noir. This is absolutely a mystery story. This is kind of Batman earning his stripes again as the world's greatest detective, which I'm into. This is, it's not quite the story that I go to Batman for, but it's pretty close.
Yeah.
Right.
And there was
why I like it so much more than you, Sarah.
There's a clear implication that the bank president was bought by the Falcone family, so it's actually a good thing for Batman to show up and show some intimidation.
Yeah.
We get that great beat where he's talking about the Falcone family simply importing fine Italian shoes. I'm wearing a pair now, and they're extremely comfortable. Screw you, guy. Come on now.
In August, Salvatore Moroni, Carla Vitti, and Carmine Falcone talk about how no bank in the city will take their money. Carmine's son, Alberto, again tries to help and is shut down and kept out of the business. In September, Carmine has his newlywed nephew, Johnny Vitti, gun down the former president as he leaves the theater, the former bank president, that is. Yeah. And we get the second beat. Somewhere in the city, I know the Roman is laughing. A black and white page shows gloved hands grinding the serial numbers off a .22 pistol and a baby bottle nipple sitting on the workbench, which is a nice transition when they then show the baby bottle nipple sitting on the counter at the Gordon kitchen.
Yeah.
In the next panel. And
I love the restraint with which we handle these interstitial scenes, the scenes of, the serial killer who's going to haunt the rest of this book, you guys, in the spoilers. I love the restraint with which we get these shots. The black and white color scheme, the panel layout is rigid and is kind of documented in that way. It's just great. Tim Sale is preposterously good.
Yes. At the Gordon house, we again see the stress that being on the police force has on a marriage as Captain Gordon gets a call about the previous bank manager's murder and in turn calls Harvey Dent, who is working in his basement at a workbench that almost exactly resembles the one from the black and white page earlier.
Sure does.
Like exactly like it though, right? It is. It's the same one.
Yes.
Like it's the same one.
I mean, it might be worth noting that his hands aren't gloved like in that panel and that page.
Well, aren't his hands in shadow?
No, you can clearly see his hands in that. And there's no gun scene on the workbench there. So, I mean, that's not saying that he wasn't doing it. I'm just saying he's not doing it at that very moment.
Still, there's like no reason to have Harvey Dent in his basement up against a workbench that has like the clamp there and everything, unless you're specifically saying, oh yeah, Harvey Dent totally shot that dude.
There's a lot of that through this. We'll keep bringing it up as we go.
He's also shirtless in that scene, which is really weird. Like just a little shirtless working at the workbench.
Whenever I'm like scraping the serial numbers off of my guns, I always do it shirtless.
True. Spoilers.
Harvey's wife expresses her fear that something could happen to him, and he comforts her. On Halloween, we get another black and white page, this time of Johnny Vitti being shot in the head twice by a gloved hand carrying a .22 pistol with the serial numbers grinded off, with a baby bottle nipple on the barrel as a silencer. The pistol and the pumpkin are left at the scene. And I gotta say, a baby bottle nipple may work on one shot, but it's definitely not gonna work on the second one.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
That bothers me. I'm not sure that would work in the first place.
Why not just get a silencer? Are they like really expensive? I don't understand.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
you can afford a bunch of 22s, but not the silencers.
Right. That feels a little weird to me. It feels like this is staged just so we can get the transition to Jim Gordon's wife.
It literally is. Yeah.
Even though it keeps coming back up.
But I'm infinitely grateful that we do get a silhouetted Batman on the next page saying, "The baby bottle nipple for a silencer. Cheap, but effective." Thanks, Batman.
You didn't think you'd ever hear Batman say the word nipple, and yet.
I think that all the time.
It's because he's too ashamed of the Batsuit nipples from the movies. And that is from Gordon, Dent, and Batman discussing the murder. But Batman once again leaves here catching Catwoman outside, who gives him some intel. And Harvey,
meow meow intel, meow meow.
Intel, meow meow. Harvey starts to look a bit guilty when he jokes about being okay with Vidi being killed. Mm-hmm. The intel leads Batman and Dent to a warehouse where the Falcone family is stockpiling its cash since they can't launder it.
Yeah.
There's an implication that there may be up to $20 million here.
It's a lot of money. And I totally get Dent's just like, man, if we were two different dudes, if we just like, and Batman's just like, don't.
We're not.
Like, screw you, Batman.
I'm just saying.
You're
I'm just
a billionaire.
Like,
I'm just a DA. I'm taking this.
Yeah.
I really
Harvey
like that
Dent's line
exchange
here. Oh boy. If we were two other guys in a room full of untraceable cash.
We're not.
Yeah, but I was just thinking how easy.
Don't.
No, Batman, I was thinking about making out with you and rolling around in the money and rubbing it on my chest.
Oh, in that case, let me show you my Batsuit nipples.
This got weird real fast. We got to keep going.
The two set fire to the cash and the whole building goes up, which is a scene lifted straight for the Dark Knight film, where the Joker does the same thing.
Yep.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then we get our third beat. Somewhere in the city, the Roman isn't laughing anymore.
Yeah.
I love that 3 beat.
It's so good.
It's really good.
So good.
Yeah.
Returning home, Dent is presented with a package from his wife, who is in good spirits. But mob hitmen are listening across the street, and they detonate a bomb that's inside that package, blowing up the Dent house. And that ends our first issue.
Okay, now, clearly the second issue starts with a splash page of Batman saying Harvey Dent is dead. Guys, Harvey Dent isn't dead.
He's not dead.
I don't want to frighten you. He does not die at this time.
No, it's fine.
How does Harvey Dent survive this explosion? How do the Dents survive this explosion?
Plot device.
Yeah.
It kind of has to be.
Narrativium.
Because the way that the art is presented to us, I mean, that is a pretty serious, because it is blowing out not just the door, but both windows on the Dent
Oh, yeah,
house.
no, they ought to be dead.
It destroys that entire house.
Yeah.
He dived into the basement.
Nope.
And hit his head on the workbench.
Yeah, he got the package and went, well, this is clearly a bomb.
Clearly
Killed
a
her.
bomb.
Watch out.
I know what kind of story I'm in.
And dived into the basement with her, rolling without his shirt on all of a sudden because he's in the basement now.
I don't know. Maybe she like pointed at the package. Maybe they weren't actually holding the package, and then like the guys activated it, and maybe they dodged behind it. No, it's utter bullshit. Narrativium is why. Yeah,
Yep.
no, they should have died or been. He
knows?
should have been Two-Face immediately after this.
Well,
I think that was what they were setting up, not like purposefully, but that was what you would think if you had read this.
Yes,
and it has
exactly.
Another month
If you
in the next
knew
issue,
who
you'd
Harvey
go,
Dent was.
Sure, yeah.
This is how they set it up. Very
This
interesting.
is how they do it. It's just a random
They're
explosion.
going to kill his wife, and he's going to become Two-Face.
We're not there yet.
Nope.
We're not there yet. Chapter 2, Thanksgiving.
Batman and Gordon interrogate the gang of hitmen that left the explosive, mentioning that Dent died in the blast. We see a flashback of Batman chasing one of them down, a chase that ends in the sewer with Solomon Grundy, which
This is the weirdest. Why is this happening?
because they're trying to introduce a bunch of the rogues galleries. The only reason I can say is that they wanted to, for some reason, introduce a bunch of the rogues gallery. I think the reason why the rogues gallery takes such a big place is because since this takes over a place over a year, it's not that interesting of a story in itself for Batman. Like, yeah, he's trying to track this murder. He's not really getting anywhere with it every month, but he's still Batman during that time. So he's still dealing with Solomon Grundy, with Joker, with all these people. And here, Solomon Grundy does provide a nice beat when he returns with Two-Face later.
Sure.
And it kind of sets up Batman mentions this being the price that the city has paid because of crime is creatures like Solomon Grundy.
Yeah, figures like Solomon Grundy who have been driven out of society. Solomon Grundy should clearly be in an asylum, not necessarily Arkham, but he should be being helped, absolutely.
Right.
But he can't be helped because this is Gotham. and the wreckage of Gotham's social structures are everywhere, even in the city sewers. So Solomon Grundy traditionally is generally represented as something of a tragic figure. He's
he's a zombie man.
Driven to crime, driven to violence, driven to this kind of anti-societal role, even though he's generally portrayed as being, I think, if you can calm him, usually through recitation of his poem, you can calm him into a kind of
placidity. Happens later in the comic. The only reason I really include this here, because it's not that important to the story, is I love Solomon Grundy. Solomon Grundy first appeared in All American Comics number 61 in 1944, created by Alfred Bester and Paul Reinman. Grundy is originally depicted as a murder victim brought back to life as a corporeal revenant or zombie. Though subsequent versions of the character have occasionally depicted a different origin. Named after the 19th century nursery rhyme, which he typically repeats over and over, Grundy was introduced as an enemy to the Golden Age Green Lantern, Alan Scott, but has since become a prominent enemy for a number of superheroes such as Batman and Superman. He also has lots of ties to Swamp Thing.
Kind of tough. I'm not sure I've ever read a story where Solomon Grundy goes up against Superman. I'm having trouble envisioning that story and what that would look like, because I feel like that would be a very short comic book. Maybe that was like a free comic book day.
I feel like whenever that happens, it's weird because it seems more like Bizarro. He's like kind of like Bizarro in a way.
Yeah.
So it's like he's kind of interchangeable. You could have just put Bizarro in this story.
Yeah.
He's just a really strong guy who's kind of not very smart.
How do you guys feel about the amount of time we spend with Irish gangsters?
Oh my God, it's too long. It's too long.
Which is why my summary kind of skips over a lot of it.
Yep.
The gang being interrogated confesses easily, but they deny all ties to the Falcone family, willing to take the fall fully. We also learned that Dent is alive and had disguised himself as one of the hitmen, but was unable to get any info out of the group this way.
This is okay.
This would never work in real life.
No, absolutely not. Like there's anyway.
But this is a comic book and we can't get too picky about reality.
Well, I mean, I can get a little picky, I think.
This is a comic book about a guy who dresses up in a bat suit and fights crime.
No,
I think, we're talking a lot about the noir influences on The Long Halloween, and those are certainly the most prevalent influences, but there's also a real pulp tradition here, and the idea of someone appearing to die in a mafia hit and then coming back, disguised as one of the people who tried to take this action against him. Yeah, it's really dumb, and I don't love the reveal, but
this also got lifted for The Dark Knight, though, with, here Harvey Dent pretends to be dead in order to capture a criminal, and the idea was used with Gordon faking his own death in order to capture the Joker in that movie.
Yeah. The influence on Nolan is profound, and I'm not sure that Nolan did as much of this material as Jeff Loeb did, honestly, at least in this particular mode.
Right.
The Nolan trilogy is not quite this kind of storytelling.
Yeah, and then that film had a different focus.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Harvey Dent, Two-Face was merely just a side story to that main story.
But I like the way that it's handled. It is, Sarah, I completely get it. Like, it is pulpy, it is dumb, it is kind of golden agey, but for me, it kind of works within the frame that's established. But yeah, this is the book where we have Batman doing that Batman vanish that he does. He just disappears, except that he's doing it on an open rooftop while two people are talking to him.
I believe that's so much more, though.
Smoke bomb. He's just suddenly gone. That's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yet, this is the world that we live in. I don't know.
Comic books. Meanwhile, Alberto watches as Carla Vitti and his father figure... No, that's not what I meant to say. Let me start it over again. Meanwhile, Alberto watches as Carla Vitti and his father argue about the death of Johnny. Harvey Dent is implied as the man who might have killed him. And I really like this panel. I mentioned it specifically so I can say this, where you see the two of them fighting in the reflection of Alberto's glasses.
Yeah, it's really cool.
We really love Alberto's glasses in the art for the series.
They are an excellent prop.
They're very 90s too.
Of course, it just reminds me of the way that we treated glasses in Superman for All Seasons, where we see Pa Kent and the reflection of the horizon in his glasses. Then we get the same shot with
This
Clark.
must be a thing that Sale really likes.
Sale just likes reflections in glasses. I guess he does them beautifully, so I'm into that.
We see that Dent's wife, Gilda, is in the hospital, and I love that Batman leaves a full Thanksgiving dinner for Solomon Grundy in the sewers. It's so beautiful.
This feels so weirdly atypical for this story, but I love it. Like, that is a Batman 66 beat, right? That is a Batman is suddenly a human being for like one page.
Did he saran wrap a plate and then just remove the saran wrap and like put that there? And he didn't make it. Alfred made that dinner, and like, what is
he microwaved it for 2 minutes. We know how that works.
Well, we know it's not that because it wasn't lobster thermidor. No, none of this really worked for me.
Yeah, it felt atypical.
Yeah.
I like this Batman. I like this Batman very much. I'm not sure that I recognize this character, but okay. If you told me that Alfred just went and gave Solomon Grundy Thanksgiving dinner, I would have completely believed it. But this Batman in particular... Okay, it is a kindness. Like, I get it. But if Batman were interested in those kinds of small mercies and acts of charity, Gotham would be a very different place already, you guys. He's still Bruce Wayne.
Anyways, the gang all makes bail and celebrate their release with a Thanksgiving dinner, but they are all shot and killed the way Vidi was in the previous issue, and this time a Thanksgiving cornucopia is left behind. And that ends our issue.
I love that our serial killer is just, getting his supplies from Hobby Lobby.
Yeah. Just
what is on the
Michael's
first aisle in front of you when you walk into a craft store? Oh, it's one of the jack-o'-lantern. Check. Okay. Cornucopia. Sure, I guess. Let's not make that any more specific.
Quick, somebody check the local Michaels to see who's buying all these holiday-themed items. I'm the world's greatest detective.
Can we trust it?
No. And that brings us to issue 3, Christmas. Mm-hmm. The Joker has escaped from Arkham Asylum, as he is wont to do, reading about the holiday killer as he reenacts the Grinch stealing all the Christmas stuff from a tied-up family.
Yeah.
The press has dubbed the killer as Holiday for killing on holidays and leaving holiday-related items behind. And we get this moment with Gordon and Batman walking through Arkham Asylum, and Gordon questions him on whether he's ever given any thought to the fact that all the criminals showed up when he did.
Yeah. No.
This is the monologue that we get from Batman is great. I know what Gordon is implying, that my presence somehow attracts these men and women to my city. Jim Gordon is a good man. He and the police do the best they can with limited resources. But Gotham City needs Batman to protect her from criminals such as Julian Day, the Calendar Man. Okay, first off,
very menacing.
The police do the best they can with their limited resources. Hey, Bruno,
hey,
do you think you
Bruce?
might be able to write them a check
hey,
that
billionaire
might
Bruno?
increase their resources?
No, that's Batman's money.
How else is he gonna get?
Nobody else can have Batman's money.
This is the thing. He's obviously aware that this is literally and exactly true. And it's true even within the frame of this book. But if you're coming into this off of year 1 where it is absolutely explicit that Batman is the reason that these costume nut jobs are trying to take down Gotham City, then, it's clearly the case that Batman knows that he's not right here. But he has to kind of reap his own harvest, right? He showed up in his bat suit. Now there are crazy people, and those crazy people need Batman. The question of kind of Bruce Wayne's culpability for the state of Gotham City is one of regret, perhaps more than it is one of inaction.
Yeah, and of course this is dealt with many different ways, but I always do enjoy the chicken and egg question of, does the superhero bring the villains or do the villains bring the superhero? I think it's always interesting. Of course, it's not really dealt with here. It's just kind of touched on for this very small moment.
Yeah, but it's traditionally one of Batman's strongest elements, I think. He is the plague on Gotham City, but now he can't stop because he started this ball rolling. Hey, you guys, what do you make of Calendar Man?
Calendar Man, so cool.
I don't care.
I love the idea that somewhere a sub-editor was just like scratching his head. Okay, we'll call this serial killer Holiday because Calendar Man is already taken.
But we'll make Calendar Man a big deal because it's so similar. As you mentioned, Batman and Gordon visit Calendar Man in Arkham Asylum to see if he has any insight on the Holiday Killer.
Why would he? How would he? Why? What? Does he have internet? Does he have Wi-Fi? Is he psychic? Does he have magic powers?
Well,
None of this
hold on.
sense.
This just shows to me that there's a lot of comic stories you haven't read, because this is an often thing where there's like a crime boss in prison who is the one pulling all the strings from outside.
But he's like in solitary.
Well, he's in Arkham Asylum where everyone just walks in and out as they want to, apparently.
So.
Batman does reference this much later in the run where he talks about, Calendar Man has been imprisoned throughout the killings of Holiday.
Yeah, they say it like 2 or 3 times.
Those records could be falsified. Like, he has no problem with
it wouldn't be the first time
that Julian Day could be slipping out of Arkham.
There's definitely been Arkham stories where things like that have happened, or when someone is there supposed to be someone else.
Gazebos. All right, all of this is gazebos. It's all bullshit.
I do like the way that Calendar Man mentions the Holiday Killer as a he, but switches pronouns and says she also, and is just of no help in general.
So, okay, here's does Calendar Man know what's up?
We'll ask that question at the end.
Oh, interesting.
No, let's discuss that at the end, because we have possibilities to discuss at the end, many of them, but let's hold off until we get all of the clues.
Well, okay, if we're going to discuss this at the end,
quote unquote clues.
If we're going to discuss this at the end, let's give Calendar Man his moment. He says, tomorrow is the big day. She'll be killing again. Batman says, what makes you think it's a woman? Because he likes it. The attention. No one knows who she is, and already he has made a name for himself or herself. This is interesting.
Pretty interesting, yeah. Yeah. Should be noted, since I'm doing this for everyone else, Calendar Man is a Batman villain known for committing crimes that correspond with holidays and significant dates. He first appeared in Detective Comics 259 in 1958 and was created by Bill Finger and Sheldon Moldoff.
Okay, so what does that mean? Like, he committed crimes that coincided with date? Was it just like, oh, it's Christmas, I'm just going to murder?
He's obsessed with dates. Yeah. That's all he really knows.
Well, usually like personal dates for the people that he is hunting. Like
it's your birthday, I'm going to kill you now. Yeah. It's your wedding anniversary.
His whole cell is lined with calendars because he's so obsessed with dates.
Or he will kill numerous people throughout the city throughout the year because they all happen to share the same birthday. That is the pattern that he is working
That's
towards.
Less dumb.
Well, it's still pretty dumb.
It's still pretty dumb.
His name is Calendar Man.
I know,
he was introduced in comics in the 50s. This is bound to happen. Yeah. Joker visits Salvatore Maroni, accusing him of being Holiday, but he denies it. He thinks it's Harvey Dent.
I'm literally, okay, pulling aside the veil here, I was just about to ask a question, and I see that it is the next line of your notes, so let's talk about it now. What do you guys think of the way that the Joker looks in this comic book? He doesn't look like he's human.
Nope.
Nah.
I rather enjoy the overemphasized just proportions maybe of him, especially like his teeth and his mouth. He has like 100 teeth and they're all very long, and they change sizes depending on how he's smiling. I've heard a lot of people complain that they really hate the way the Joker looks here, but I kind of like the cartoony.
Yeah, it doesn't really bother me.
Yeah, he's real. I think I really always love real gangly, lanky Joker. And
he's like Slender Man before Slender Man was a thing.
Like gangly, lanky Joker. I think that works pretty well for me. I wish that we titled these episodes so that I could call it Excelsior issue number 24 or wherever we are. Gangly, lanky Joker.
Yeah.
It's a fun phrase to say with the family. Gather your family around you and try saying it right now, dear listeners at home. But for me, he's too cartoony. This is Batman the Animated Series Joker. And
oh no, Batman the Animated Series Joker looks way better.
Oh yeah, well, I would agree with that.
But to the degree that he looks,
it doesn't fit the art genre.
No one else in this story looks like.
He looks alien.
Yeah, it's super weird. Mm-hmm. So
it's a lot of toothiness going on.
I'm not
too many teeth.
It is extremely creepy.
Awful teethy.
I do love though his Grinch recreations and his
yes, it's pretty good. Singing his songs and everything. Yeah, he starts singing his song. He's like, I hate that song. It switches as if he couldn't not sing it. Harvey surprises Gilda with a new house for Christmas, but Joker is inside, accusing Dent of being Holiday. He reveals that he doesn't think there is room for two homicidal maniacs, him and Holiday, but he leaves with only a threat, seeming to question that Dent could even be Holiday. The Joker finally confronts Falcone, telling him to find Holiday or that the Joker will kill everyone in Gotham City. When the Joker leaves, Holiday kills Falcone's main bodyguard, Milos, with yet another .22 pistol, this time leaving a snow globe.
Mm-hmm.
Merry Christmas.
It's a great setup. It's weird that these two issues, issue 3 and 4, kind of form this two-part story right in the middle, or I guess right at the end of the first act of the larger story. I like the way that they work together. I like that this is where the Joker is. I like the emphasis that we give him, and I like how genuinely creepy he is. But there's a lot of this material that you could compress.
Right.
Then,
absolutely.
Do you think that this should be a 13-issue series?
Oh, it's really hard to say. If I had read it at the time, I probably would have been... I mean, at the time, you're doing most things monthly because you don't have things like Marvel Unlimited, and graphic novels aren't as big of a deal.
Let's remember the late 90s, you guys. Let's remember the world before Netflix.
So I probably wouldn't have been angry because it's just normal for this type of thing to happen. But I do feel like, unless this is like me just getting my Batman fill, this isn't me really progressing the story. I'm just getting my Batman fill by having him fight the Joker and having him kind of be sidelined for this whole next issue.
I have no doubt that if this was written today, it would be a 6-issue arc. It might even be with the double-sized first issue. It may be a 5-issue arc, and it would have been much more compressed and would arguably have been just as effective. Sarah, given that you didn't care for this story as much.
It's too long.
So you would value that compression? You would value just
absolutely. Like, I don't care about the Rogues Gallery stuff. I don't care about doing all this other stuff. If the editor comes to you and says, I want you to do a gangster story, just do the gangster story. I don't need all this other stuff that's taking forever. Like, it takes way too long. The Joker's just running around being weird. I don't care about the Catwoman stuff. I don't care about all this other junk. Like, just give me the story of the Falcone family and Batman and Harvey Dent and Gordon trying to figure that out. Like, give me the detective story rather than the superhero story, because if you're going to tease me with the supervillains and all of that, then you're like, oh, like, they don't belong in this story. This isn't a superhero story. This is a detective story.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Catwoman's presence in this book also upsets me, but that's something I want to talk about toward the end as well.
Great. Sarah, do you like this Batman?
No, I don't care. I don't really care about it. Yeah, I guess not. I don't know. Like, I'm starting to become worried that this month is going to lead me to just not enjoy Batman. I mean, like, I was at like
we're gonna draw you back.
I was at like 0 opinion, and then we did Lego Batman. I was very excited, and now we're
Plus
doing
100.
this. Yeah, plus 100, and now I'm just back to like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I understand that like it's different. It's going to be different with every film and comic and things that we look at. But like, as far as like this story, like again, objectively, I understand that this is an award-winning comic and ought to be. But oh my God, I don't care.
Yeah. We might have to look at our list and try to think what Batman would Sarah love and see if we can figure that out.
I mean, we did it. It was Lego Batman.
Well, comic-wise. I meant for the comics. For the comics.
Comic-wise is a little trickier. I would certainly be leaning toward the New 52. I'd be leaning toward, you know, the Court of Owls stuff and the war jokes. And
we
riddles,
discussed Arkham Asylum because it's scary and it's Halloween themed, but I don't know if that's going to do it.
That might be a little dark. Yeah.
Let's get back to it, though, because we've still got freaking like 9 issues.
So, issue 4, New Year's Eve. The Joker enacts his plan to fly over a crowd at New Year's Eve party downtown Gotham, poisoning all of them because Carmine didn't find the killer. But Batman is hot on his heels. And I really do appreciate Tim Sale doing these pinups that he loves so much, just a whole page pinups, and he opens it up here with just Joker's face. I like it. I appreciate it.
This is pretty much the only connection artistically between this series and Superman for All Seasons is like the beautiful focus, the lavish focus that is put on these splash pages. I'm crazy about them. Tim Sale's a genius, you guys. He just is.
Harvey Dent's assistant, Vernon, brings to his attention a family connection between Bruce Wayne and Carmine Falcone. As midnight approaches, the crime families celebrate the new year on a ship in the harbor. Carmine thinks to himself, if it weren't for his son, Alberto, there'd be no one he could trust. Then we see Alberto standing at the railing of the ship as a light is turned out and a .22 pistol is fired, and Carla, looking for Alberto, sees him fall over the side, finding a pistol, a glass of champagne, and streamers where Alberto had been standing. There's blood in the water.
There is. So there's a really interesting beat in this comic book, which is addressed right at the end of the trade, which is that when this book was coming out, people jumped on this inconsequential detail, perhaps saying, there was no body! This is clearly a staged murder! Okay, let's jump ahead to the end. You guys, this is a staged murder.
It's a staged murder.
It turns out that Alberto is the Holiday. It's fine. We'll get to all of that. We'll get to the
possibly.
reveal.
We'll discuss that some more.
He's a Holiday. Let's say that.
No, okay. Oof. All right. No. Oof. Okay.
But this is a staged death. The problem is that there was supposed to be a body visible.
Yes.
We were supposed to do this. If you read the end of the trade, they have some sketches for what that page would have looked like.
Right.
It was cut for length. Really, you guys? That was what you cut for length?
I guess so.
Because there's a pretty compelling argument that the inclusion of the false body here is the most important page in the book. But no, let's definitely have a splash page of the Joker's face. That's definitely a better use of your resources here. Once again, could Bruce Wayne not just have channeled some money into, DC Comics? Could you not just have channeled some money into the production of this book and added an extra page?
Yes.
It's such a weird choice.
It is.
This is such a weird choice. And we're reminded, of course, that comic books, they are created by a large group of people, not just the writer, not just the artist, not just the colorist, not just the letterer, but editors and page preppers and all of the technical back-end staff. Yeah, this is a weird decision.
It is. Meanwhile, Gilda surprises Harvey with the Gordons, who are at his home to celebrate the new year. She comments on how his hair is wet, even though he's wearing a hat.
Bum, bum, bum!
As the wives talk about the possibilities of the Dents having a baby, when Harvey is so busy, Harvey tells Gordon about the Wayne-Carmine connection.
I can't believe that he's too busy to be getting busy with his wife.
Batman engages with the Joker and they battle over the city, taking him down just in time as the clock strikes midnight, saving Gotham. And that's the end of our issue.
Yay.
Cool. Good. Thanks. I like it. Like, I wouldn't have hated this as a Batman
fun Batman story. Yeah.
It's two issues that don't really add up to anything. And you guys, you don't really get to lean on but maybe there's something shady about Bruce Wayne when his name is basically the title of the book. We know who Bruce Wayne is. I get that Harvey Dent and Jim Gordon don't really at this point. That's fine. But we do. And that's not how dramatic irony works.
Not at all.
You create dramatic irony by giving the audience information that the characters don't have, not trying to fabricate this connection that doesn't exist. This does not work.
If you're curious about how much is in that issue, I have 6 bullet points in my notes. And if you know me, that's not very much.
That's almost nothing. Wow. Did you pass out halfway through?
I can do 6 bullet points on one page. Issue 5.
That was mean. I love you. I love all the bits that you take. I'm not trying to be bitchy. I was trying to make a joke. It didn't work. I'm sorry.
I appreciate the joke, but we have no time. I have to move on.
You're right. Notes.
Issue 5, Valentine's Day. Dent and Gordon visit Wayne Manor to see Bruce, but Alfred tells him that since it's Valentine's Day, he is out and probably won't return for some time. Exactly.
Master Bruce.
Oh, no.
No, wait. That makes it sound like he's having sex with Alfred.
I was thinking Batman 66 when Alfred was wanting to watch in because he's a creepy old man.
Oh, you're right.
Carmine visits his son's grave, but Batman confronts him there because Batman's kind of a dick sometimes, asking if it was all worth it. And how many other people's sons that Carmine's actions have robbed.
Yeah.
Catwoman.
That's just rude.
Yeah. Well, he's Batman. Catwoman interrupts. Later that night, Bruce and Selina are on a date, and Bruce is pricked by a thorn on a rose from a robed woman. We see that Dent's assistant Vernon is paid off by Maroni, and outside, a number of his men stand guard in a car, but the Holiday kills them all, leaving a heart-shaped box of chocolates. Maroni, outraged, declares war. We see Gordon and Dent both bringing heart-shaped boxes to their wives, but Bruce wanders in a trance through his manor, having left Selina, ignoring Alfred, and meeting the robed woman outside. It's Poison Ivy, and the thorn prick has put him under a spell.
And then they bone in the garden, right?
Yeah.
I do like the repetition of the heart-shaped box, though.
It's actually beautifully
really
done. Yeah, no, it's a great visual.
And they do something similar a couple of times throughout the rest of the book.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's one of these things when we see these representative icons of each of the, because I was snide earlier about the Holiday visiting Hobby Lobby or Michael's or wherever and picking the first thing off the shelf. But I like that these iconic items are represented throughout the pages. When we see Harvey Dent's house blow up, a couple of jack-o'-lanterns are thrown off the porch, which is a nice nod to the idea that the Holiday is kind of co-opting these symbols of each of these various holidays. You guys, I love this sequence with Poison Ivy. I've never liked Poison Ivy in anything. I don't care about her as a character, and the femme fatale thing does not work for me in a superhero story, but works for me brilliantly in a noir story.
There's one particular way that Poison Ivy works for me, and I'm going to talk about it just after I share her origin here very quickly.
Please do.
Poison Ivy is a Batman villain who was created by Robert Kanigher, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, and Sheldon Moldoff. Making her first appearance in Batman 181 in 1966, she is a botanist obsessed with plants. Botanist is what I said, but it's botanist.
Yes.
That's what happens when you're reading notes. Let's just go back there. She uses plant toxins and mind-controlling pheromones for her criminal activities, which are usually aimed at protecting endangered species and the natural environment. An interesting note for anyone who doesn't know, and what I like most about Ivy is that Ivy and Harley Quinn are very close friends, and they are sometimes shown romantically involved.
Yes!
Ivy sincerely wants to save Harley from her unhealthy, abusive relationship with the Joker. And accordingly, Poison Ivy despises the Joker, and I love when she actually gets to say things to his face, because it's delightful.
Yeah, Ivy and Harley works
power couple.
Well.
Love them. So good.
Specifically because it is that idea of salvation and preservation and restoration, and Ivy as the kind. See, you can tell that Ivy was created in the 60s and not in the 40s because she has an agenda. She has complexity. She has depth as a character. And you can kind of lean into that. This idea that she is doing what she has to do to save the world. I like that very much. Ivy's never connected for me as a character, but using her here to turn Bruce and how devastatingly effective she is. Like in this world, her plant-based kind of neurotoxin power is extremely good and effective and unsettling and weird. In a superhero story, she can do plants. It's just fine, I guess.
There's also a point to be made that you don't really get this when you're reading it in trade, but she definitely has Bruce Wayne under mind control for like a month.
Oh, yeah.
There's like a whole month.
Yeah.
And also that gets into some really shady territory that I don't really want to talk about because it's really hard not to say something that you shouldn't say when you're talking about some sexual things that might be going on there that are very awful.
No, we should probably acknowledge that, though. Yes, this is the complete corruption of personality.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne is sidelined for a month. If this is not the most devastating thing that has happened to Bruce Wayne since, sorry, you said his parents were killed in an alley?
Yes, I believe so.
Sorry, I have trouble keeping track of the deep backstory of these characters. If this is not the most troubling thing that has happened to Bruce Wayne since that traumatic event, then I don't know what is wrong with Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't myself. I was a plant-controlled zombie for a month. Like, that's going to be a definitive origin story for most heroes.
And it just goes to show that the 90s were a different time, because if you tried writing this story now, this would have to be talked about in the comic.
Certainly. My God, yes. Yeah. Although, again, the noir aesthetic kind of...
Yeah, that's true.
It turns it just so. It's dark. Very, very dark.
But this takes us into issue 6, St. Patrick's Day. It's March, and Sofia Gigante, Carmine Falcone, I keep doing it.
It's all right. You know what?
Carmine Falcone's daughter has been released from Gotham Penitentiary. Bruce Wayne meets the Gotham City Bank Board and switches his position, approving the Falcone family for business with the bank. He knows he is being controlled, though. Selina notices Bruce with poison ivy. Dent's corrupt assistant eavesdrops as Gordon and Dent discuss how to end the gang war that the holiday killings have caused between the Maroni and Falcone families.
This is how you know this is a noir, because every single assistant is corrupt.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Yeah, Vernon's the worst.
Everyone is working for someone else.
And again, Dent says something suspicious, saying Holiday is doing their job for them, but Gordon sternly reminds him that killing is not their job.
Damn it, can we talk about Jim Gordon? Can we talk about what
Gordon
a great
amazing.
character
Like how he's the only good man in Gotham.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes Batman is too.
No,
But yeah,
no. You don't get to dress up as a giant bat and
Sometimes we
punch
believe in
people.
Harvey Dent.
Hey, hold on. Bat privilege. Sophia informs her aunt Carla Vitti that they plan to hit Maroni on St. Patrick's Day, believing he is connected to the Holiday Killer. Yeah. However, Holiday hits on St. Patrick's Day in a mass killing at Maroni's hideout before Sophia can. She sees what has happened and leaves, but Maroni spots her, believing her to be Holiday. A leprechaun statue is left at the site by Holiday.
God, this is starting to get complicated.
Yeah. None of this matters.
None of it matters.
None of it matters.
Catwoman interrupts a dinner between Bruce and the poison ivy, and she frees Bruce from Ivy's control, and Ivy flees.
I love this. When she tears open his shirt and he is
just
like covered with
his
leaves,
chest,
blah, blah, blah.
like wrapped in Ivy's, like this physical representation of Ivy's influence.
Yeah.
Seeing that through a noir lens and seeing Ivy as the femme fatale, I love this. This is great.
Yeah. Batman later thanks her for saving Bruce, but when he asks her why, she cryptically says that he will soon find out.
We're supposed to be living in a world where Catwoman and Batman don't know who the other
They
is.
have to know.
Thanks so much for saving Bruce. Oh, why do you say that? He's a buddy. Just
She lives in my attic.
We drank together.
Yeah, he gets scared. He beatboxes. It's fine.
Batman thinks about what he did under Ivy's spell and what he needs to do to fix it. It is revealed that Carmine was paying Poison Ivy.
It's a perfectly standard.
Don't care. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so none of this for you?
No.
The Joker two-parter, the Poison Ivy two-parter?
It's taking so long.
Okay, no, that's fair. That's fair.
I actually kind of like the Poison Ivy stuff, but yeah, it is problematic whenever it's like, oh, wait, she took away all of his agency, and if they did, I mean, presumably they were
having
sleeping
like
together,
dinner,
which then means that she was definitely raping him, and that's
she
not
totally
okay.
ends it by saying, no man can resist me, and that just seems like, this seems like it's going somewhere.
Yeah.
Moving on to issue 7, April Fool's Day. Batman and Riddler are shown in contrast.
April Fool's Day really a holiday?
Yeah.
It's as much a holiday as St. Patrick's Day is in the U.S.
Do people
Right?
drink on April Fool's Day? Like,
That's not what the
Hold on,
Sarah.
If people drinking makes it a holiday, then people all over the U.S. performing pranks on people makes it a holiday, surely.
I'm just saying that, like, fine, whatever.
I mean, is
No.
the Roman's birthday a national holiday?
April Fool's Day is a holiday because of the Riddler.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's why.
Oh.
Batman and Riddler are shown in contrast, both thinking over the evidence for the holiday murders. And I'll stop right now just to talk about the Riddler real quick. The Riddler, Edward Nygma, that is Enigma. It's cheesy, I know, but how can you not like that?
I love that.
I love that too.
Maybe my favorite supervillain alternate identity.
First made his appearance.
Nigma, Sarah?
Right.
It's better than Harley Quinzel. It's a billion.
And at least that he happened in the 40s.
Yeah.
He first made his appearance in Detective Comics number 140 in 1948 and was created by Bill Finger and Dick Sprang. Yes, I said that.
Dick Sprang?
Yep. Dick Sprang.
Dick Sprang?
It does still
get a reaction
feel like something that should appear in one of those animated word balloons that you get in Batman 1966.
Sprang.
Sprang.
When he sees Catwoman.
Sure. One of the cool things about Riddler is that he is one of the most brilliant minds in the DC universe, but he is caught up on the fact that he can never outsmart Batman, and that's what makes him a villain. In 2009,
move to Metropolis, my dude. Life will be so much better.
The Riddler was ranked as IGN's 59th greatest comic book villain of all time.
Yeah. He can't move to Metropolis, though, because Superman is not the world's greatest detective. He has to prove himself as the greatest mind in the world.
Going the Baltimore route, I see.
World.
He's one of these great characters who would be genuinely heroic, who would do fantastic things for the world, if not for the fact that he was driven by arrogance and by ego.
And I should say,
Batman sure does cause a lot of problems.
I've only seen season 1 of Gotham, but they do a really good job with showing the Riddler as someone who's not really that bad of a guy, but he gets handed a few bad hands.
Oh, yeah.
Here and there, and becomes
his story becomes really interesting for sure.
It's one of the things that makes me love the Riddler in the Arkham games and the Rocksteady trilogy of the Arkham games in particular. He's just a great presence. He was driven to distraction by the genius of the Batman. Yeah.
Also, there's no time for this, so I don't want to hear your comments, and I don't want anybody to at me. But Jim Carrey played an okay Riddler because he stole from Gershwin.
I agree. I agree with both sides of that statement. I think you're completely right.
Moving on, though, Riddler has been brought in by Falcone to solve the mystery of Holiday. He mentions that the 22 is a light weapon, suggesting a woman. He puts forth Catwoman as a possibility, and I do like seeing Catwoman with the hat and coat on. It's pretty delightful because she had access to the safe and the ledger that has the names on it of who to attack. He also suggests an inner family affair with Carla Vitti as Holiday, killing her own son, knowing that then no one would suspect her. Meanwhile, Batman theorizes Sal Maroni could be Holiday, having a lot to benefit from the Falcone family failing. Alfred suggests that Holiday could be someone taking justice too far, and Batman knows Gordon wouldn't, but thinks that Dent could.
Alfred's line here, I might only point out that in one's quest for justice, I have seen someone even as sane as yourself behave in the most surprising ways.
Oh my goodness.
Sometimes you get an entire story, like an entire life experience encapsulated in one line of dialogue, and that is it. Master Bruce, what the fuck?
Yep.
For real, though. Yes.
I tried my best, but you're still dressed up as a bat. I don't know where I went wrong. Dent and Gordon decide to arrest Bruce Wayne for his involvement with Falcone and his money. Dent's assistant eavesdrops again.
Vernon, you bastard.
And I really like the transition here from Batman saying Harvey Dent, coming to that conclusion, and to Harvey saying Bruce Wayne.
Yes.
Coming to a similar...
Donkey!
Donkey! Also, these panels with the theories of who might be Holiday are very well done, even on top of Catwoman with her double suit for some reason. But them revisiting the murders with these people in the place is just really a really good way to show and not tell in the story.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah,
I like it a great deal. I feel like it could almost be the first issue of the run.
Yeah.
Like, I like the idea of coming into the story in medias res.
Yeah, you could cut all the stuff with the Joker, all the stuff with the Scarecrow that we're about to deal with here in a few minutes. All the stuff with the Riddler even, and like just do this. Even this is more interesting and more concise than we're just throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall.
Exactly, and I think that that's actually a fair criticism of The Long Halloween, which is that it is seeking to do what DC seeks to do from time to time, which is to be definitive. This isn't just a story, this is history. This is what happened after year one. And because DC keeps rebooting their universe, they keep having to do these stories.
Right.
Not the brand new origin stories, not the brand new first stories for each new hero in each new era as they're already moving, but all of this connective tissue stuff.
Right.
All of this, but okay, in the post-crisis continuity, the post-final crisis continuity, the post-New 52 continuity, where did Catwoman come from? We don't need to know. You don't need to do this unless it is relevant to an actual ongoing plot. And that, I think, is an absolutely fair critique of this approach to DC continuity.
I have a question, and we can't linger too long on it, but it just occurred to me. Do you think that this would have worked very well if it was not a Batman story. I know that Harvey Dent is the tie-in to Batman here that makes it really have to be a Batman story, but you take that out, change it to just a random new character, and taking Batman out takes all the weight off of this story.
Absolutely. Or if it was even like...
It makes it so streamlined and perfect.
Yeah. If it was like Harvey Dent, The Long Halloween. If it was like a Harvey Dent story.
If this is a 6-issue Harvey Dent story. If this is a 6-issue Selena Kyle story.
Yeah, don't focus on Batman. The only Batman you see is when he's talking to Gordon and Dent, and that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it would work a lot better.
Work really well.
Very interesting.
I do think that Catwoman is probably the character that we'd have to pay the most attention to. But then let's be honest, if you're doing a Catwoman series, particularly in the late 1990s, it's not going to be about this mystery. It's going to be about, oh, but I am so sexual. It's all about, it's about her being Catwoman,
right?
Which is why every Catwoman solo series has failed.
Moving on. When Riddler runs out of guesses, he guesses Carmine Falcone might be Holiday, and Carmine grows tired of him and throws him out. Holiday approaches Riddler outside, shooting all around him, scaring him, but not once shooting him. And Riddler says, when does a killer not kill? April Fools. Issue 8.
Yeah, kind of a push. Okay. Mother's Day, though, issue 8.
Yeah.
So this is where we get like the most hints dropped about like Batman's origin and like what happened with Bruce's parents. And so it was finally starting to come together for me.
I mean, also, since we're talking about his parents, probably Bruce's origin too.
Yeah, I assume so. Yeah.
I love the Bruce Wayne's secret origin, issue 1. When a man and a woman love each other very much, they get certain urges.
Okay, yeah, I can see this as like a sex ed course, Batman themed. I can see that. Yeah.
Sprang. Moving on.
Yep. Calendar Man has a good quote here. He's making quite a name for herself. Holiday. Soon the Calendar Man will be forgotten.
God, I don't care, Calendar Man.
Oh my God, really?
Really?
I like it. I like it a lot.
I mean, it's not great for this story, but I love the idea of someone being locked up in Arkham and seeing someone else do their shtick, but better.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
That would suck.
He's very upset.
I really like
Which
that.
is also a good panel at the very end of all this. We'll talk about then. Batman visits Calendar Man in Arkham, asking more about Holiday, but he is still no help. While he is there, Scarecrow escapes with some help from somebody.
While Batman is there, Scarecrow escapes.
Batman falls for a fake Scarecrow, and when he attacks it, he's like exposed.
Sorry,
Scarecrow
I'm
attacks.
sorry.
Could you read that sentence again?
Yeah. Batman falls for a fake Scarecrow. On a horse.
For an actual Scarecrow.
Yeah, an actual Scarecrow.
Okay.
It's a fake version of
World's
Scarecrow the
greatest
person.
detective, you guys.
To be fair, it's on a real horse. That's galloping around. And it's dark out, guys. When he attacks it, he is exposed to Scarecrow's fear toxin. The Scarecrow is a Batman villain created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger, who first appeared in World's Finest Comics, number 3, in 1941.
Whoa.
Scarecrow is an obsessive and deranged ex-professor of psychology who uses a variety of experimental and psychological tactics to exploit the fears and phobias of his victims. The Scarecrow was ranked as 58th greatest comic book villain of all time by IGN.
I'm starting to feel like we need to just do an episode about this IGN greatest villains of all time list. Like run down the top 100 and argue about it. I'm kind of into that idea.
Oh man, that would be fun. Yeah.
I think it's a funny note to mention that the first appearance of Scarecrow, basically the first thing they say about him in panel 1 is that as a child, he liked to frighten birds.
Yeah, of course he did.
Motherfucker. God, okay.
It was
Jeez.
1941.
I don't care when it was.
Gordon is at Wayne Manor again, but Alfred tells him Bruce is out again.
Love all the Alfred scenes that we get in this.
Why did you wait till the next holiday to show up and ask for Bruce? I don't understand this.
This is the problem that we get in every damn Harry Potter book, where we get to like the Christmas holidays and the plot is ready to be over now, but oh no, we'd better just wait until June. So then 6 weeks passed and not much happened, and Hermione was probably unconscious somewhere, and it's fine.
Then they were actually educated.
Then they were educated for like a minute. Harry can't count past 15. It's very sad, you guys.
Nope.
Sophia Falcone finds the location of the gunmaker who's been making the 22 pistols while trying to track Holiday, but when she gets there, the gunmaker is already dead, and the Mother's Day bouquet is left behind as Holiday's calling card. Bruce returns to Crime Alley to leave a rose where his mother was killed, but he is affected by the fear toxin, having flashbacks, and when Gordon approaches to arrest him, he sees his parents' killer and runs. Gordon tells his men to take it slow and not shoot, and they find him crying at his mother's grave.
This took me way too long to figure out what was going on.
I was about to say exactly the same thing. Yeah,
it kind of does like a weird flashback and forth with the toxin.
Distilled, but yeah, trying to read this, I was not
so
hooked.
Confused.
Yeah,
I hadn't. Yeah, no, it was difficult.
You didn't get that Gordon became Joe Chill? You didn't get that?
No, I did get that, which was
she
weird.
Didn't understand that Commissioner Gordon, Captain Gordon transformed into an obscure character from Batman's backstory
that we've never ever discussed.
Mother, he's after your pearls. Why is Bruce talking like Batman all of a sudden?
You guys have both played Arkham Asylum, the first of the Rocksteady games, right?
I watched
when Batman gets hit with the fear toxin, and as he's walking through the hallway, and water starts to drip from the ceiling, and then you realize, no, water isn't dripping from the ceiling, it's actually raining, even though he is inside, and you transition into Crime Alley, where his parents were killed. Like, it's such a brilliant sequence. If you guys haven't played Rocksteady's Arkham Asylum.
Most of those games are very, very good.
Asylum is great. City, I think, is the best. Origin is not good. That wasn't by Rocksteady.
I like Arkham Knight.
Yes.
The best, but mostly just because of all the things that you can do in that one. And then they have a ton of side missions that are just brilliant Easter eggs.
Knight's the one that I haven't played Knight yet, but I'm building up to that.
I'll just bring it over.
But you should definitely do that.
So we should do that for a play date.
Let's stream it. Yes.
Yeah.
This brings us to issue 9, Father's Day. In the flashback, we learned of the Falcone-Wayne family connection. When Bruce was a child, Vincent Falcone took his son Carmine to Bruce's father to save his life after a failed assassination attempt by Sal Marone's father. Thomas Wayne does so reluctantly on his doctor's oath to protect life and asks for nothing in return. Bruce sits behind bars in the present while his trial for his connection to the Falcones proceeds. And I really, really love when Alfred is at the bench.
Oh, yeah.
In the
this
trial.
is very good.
And Dent says, why didn't the Waynes report this crime? So that Luigi Moroni would be behind bars and this city wouldn't be in the grip of Carmine Roman Falcone. And he says, perhaps Dr. Wayne did file a report, but Gotham City was different then. The police, even the district attorney's office, were rife with graft. Several months later, Dr. Wayne and his wife were murdered. The most decent people I have ever known, gunned down in these very streets. To this day, the killer was never brought to justice. Perhaps Gotham City is not all that different.
This Alfred Pennyworth is fantastic.
Best Alfred Pennyworth?
And they immediately cut to Gordon saying, that's going to hurt us. Because he nailed it. He got it.
Damn.
I do like...
beans.
I love Jim Gordon commenting on the case like it's, a sporting event. Oh, man. Ref.
Fumble.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out.
Sal Marone's father is the next victim of Holiday, who leaves a tie in a box behind for Father's Day.
Of course.
Sophia informs her father, Carmine, that Bruce Wayne was acquitted quickly by a jury. She then presents him with a tie for Father's Day.
And he doesn't care, and I got so mad.
Yeah, and when Gordon gets home, he also gets a tie with his child's handprints. It's very cute. And again, Holiday 3-beat right there.
Yeah.
Harvey is very upset about Wayne getting acquitted. He is found by his wife in his basement flipping a coin that his father gave him, talking about how justice is just a flip of the coin. A coin that will be very important to the person he becomes as he sits halfway in shadow in the basement.
Maybe a little forced. It wouldn't have hurt us to introduce the coin a little earlier, I guess. But no, okay.
Yeah.
No, this is right here. This is. Are you sure? Oh, all right.
Bruce wonders how different Gotham would be if his father had not saved Carmine that day.
Not that different, dude.
And Alfred says that his father would have saved anyone that came to him. And I really, really like this moment where Alfred is looking up at the portrait and says, it would be as fruitless as my wondering, had I been a different sort of father to you, how better your life might be. It gives me a lot of feels.
Like
Alfred?
Yeah.
Alfred outright acknowledging that he is Bruce Wayne's dad?
Yeah.
This is, you're right. These two beats, right? Carmine Falcone completely ignoring his daughter, and then Alfred wondering, could I have been a better father to Bruce?
Nice.
Both of these are big enough for a story of their own.
That might actually be my favorite moment in the whole comic.
It's spectacular.
It's really good. Yeah. And of course, this you could just take this a completely different way and be like, maybe you wouldn't be running around in a bat suit like an insane person.
Maybe. Even someone is.
I like to take it with the feels, though. Exactly.
Master Bruce, nut job.
Meanwhile,
you've been drinking too much Chardonnay, Alfred.
We're just never going to be able to stop quoting later Batman when we talk about Batman. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. The Mad Hatter is seen working with Scarecrow, and it is revealed that Carmine was the one that got both of them out of Arkham. He says they must be ready to take care of Gotham City bank business. The Mad Hatter is a Batman villain modeled after the Hatter from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. He's a scientist who invented... Yeah, I know it's crazy to believe. Much like the origin of Batman, it's not well known. He's a scientist who invents and uses technological mind-controlling devices to influence and manipulate the minds of his victims. Created by Bill Finger and Lou Sayer Schwartz, the Mad Hatter made his first appearance in Batman 49 in 1948. Late that night, Harvey's assistant Vernon calls Harvey to the office where Sal Maroni offers a deal to stop Carmine Falcone once and for all.
I hate the Mad Hatter, you guys.
Let's move on.
Unnecessary. Let's move on.
Yep.
Not good.
Yep. Moving on.
Issue 10, Independence Day. We open up this issue on the 4th of July with the holiday killing the Gotham City coroner, leaving a small Statue of Liberty. Meanwhile, Selina talks to Bruce about getting out of the city, getting away from it all.
Yeah.
Later, Dent summons Batman, informing him he made a mistake with Bruce Wayne, but that after Maroni testifies against Carmine, it's all over, he wants to get out of town for a while. Gordon informs them about Holiday's latest hit.
Yes, this idea of getting out of town is a very, very powerful noir idea, right? The idea in noir stories is that society itself is corrupt. The world is bad and it's going to get worse and there is no saving anyone. The only thing that you can do is get out. Yeah. This is why every good noir story ends with the hero saving the heroine, saving the damsel, and getting her out of the city. She goes somewhere else where she can be safe and, crucially, her innocence and hope can be preserved. And the idea of hope and belief and innocence are, of course, inextricably tied to the heart of the story. This beat of Selina talking to Bruce and then of Harvey talking to his wife, like getting out of the city is the only thing that you can do because Gotham is not salvageable.
Yeah.
This is one of the ways in which Batman actually pushes back against this Batman story in particular, pushes back against this noir convention. Society is corrupt. Society has fallen. Batman doesn't believe it. He is standing at the shore as the tide is coming in, defying it. And he is never going to win.
Right.
That's what makes Batman such a tragic archetypal figure. And I love that. It thrilled me to see Jeff Loeb understanding noir so beautifully that he can use this idea of getting out of the city. It also really made me want to watch the 1990 Dick Tracy movie with both of you.
I haven't seen this in so long. I really want to rewatch it.
I love that movie. This is the Warren Beatty Madonna Dick Tracy movie.
What?
Yep. Madonna plays Breathless Mahoney. It's a damn good Dick Tracy name.
That's a really good burlesque name.
I should like that. Yeah.
It should be noted that Harvey Dent is still flipping his coin.
Yes.
Sophia visits Sal in jail, telling him that Dent is the real enemy here and that she knows he will do the right thing. Gilda talks to Barbara about how Harvey is changing and wonders if he will ever be the same again.
Nope.
Scarecrow and Mad Hatter rob the Gotham City bank, but Batman and Catwoman show up and stop them, with Catwoman saying, "Oh, my paws and whiskers." Sorry, it's the only line from Alice I remember.
There are moments when I love Selena Kyle, you guys.
Yeah, I really like it.
Works
I really
for me.
like it.
Yep.
Batman again questions why Catwoman keeps showing up, but she still won't answer.
Yeah.
Bringing us to issue 11, Roman Holiday. The phrase Roman Holiday, by the way.
Roman Holiday, one of these things is not like the other.
Nope, not at all. The phrase Roman Holiday comes from the gladiatorial days and refers to one taking pleasure out of another one's pain. Gilda finds a...
Schadenfreude?
Yep.
Kind of. Yeah.
Gilda finds a .22 pistol in their basement and questions Harvey about it, but he has no patience for the question and says it's just evidence from Holiday's case. Batman finds Riddler drunk at a bar, which I really appreciate this scene.
Love this. Yes.
And questions him about Holiday, but the Riddler has no answers. But again, this happened to Riddler like 2 months ago. You're just now looking for him, Batman? I mean, he's just drunk at the bar. It's not like he was hard to find.
I've been super busy. I've been working out. It takes a lot to get this swole.
Carla Vitti confronts Carmine about the quote-unquote freaks he has been hiring, the crazy villains. But they are interrupted by Sophia. They are celebrating Carmine's birthday, the Roman holiday, as it were. Yeah. As Sal heads into the courtroom, Dent's crooked assistant gives him what he says is stomach medicine for his ulcer from Dent. On the witness stand, Sal makes reference to his ulcer, and Dent clearly doesn't know about his ulcer at all, if he even has one. Sal hurls the contents of the medicine bottle in Harvey's face as Harvey falls to the ground in agony. And the juxtaposition of Carmine blowing out his birthday candles with the medicine, the acid being thrown is really nice. Yeah. I really like that.
This is enormously powerful. I mean, you can argue whether or not it really earns its place in this story specifically. The pacing is certainly suffering at this point. It would be better if we were reading this month to month, I think, but...
This part actually really worked for me. This is where it started to pick up again for me. Yeah.
So, Sarah, how does Harvey Dent work for you as a representation of, I guess, hope in Gotham City? Do you believe in Harvey Dent?
I don't. This Harvey Dent from step one seems to be kind of, he doesn't see, like, he's not quite like the good old boy that like Aaron Eckhart is in Dark Knight, the Christopher Nolan film.
Who could be like Aaron Eckhart?
He's so good.
He's so good.
But I mean, like, we even start like from the very beginning with in this comic with Dent being like, oh yeah, 2 shots to the head. I can't think of a nicer guy it could have happened to. It's like, you're not the White Knight of Gotham. You're just kind of a guy, just kind of doing your thing. Like,
which does raise an interesting question. Why does anyone believe in Harvey Dent? Like, what is he supposed to accomplish?
We are only given.
Why is it not? I believe in Jim Gordon. Like, I believe in Jim Gordon way more.
We are only given.
You don't have to state obvious and necessary facts about the world.
We are only given a reason.
to Jim Gordon.
We're only given a reason to believe in Dent in as much as that Batman does. Yeah. So it's never actually explained what he has done to earn that belief. But you're like, well, if Batman believes in him, then it must be worth believing in. Move on. Which I'm kind of glad for, because we didn't need an extra issue telling us why we should believe in Dent.
Well, I mean, we could have replaced like the
we could have replaced a lot of it with
anyway.
But we didn't, and we must move on. I do like the quote, "You're dead, Dent. That stuff will eat through cement. Did you really think you had me? Did you?" It's good. It's a good mob move. Yeah, I like it.
Very good mob line.
And then Bruce Wayne watching in the skies in court is a nice touch.
We should mention that Dent this is going back to Batman Year One. I've just been thinking about what Sarah said, and this is, you're right. We come into this off of the back of Year One. Dent is the first person to side with Batman. He's like the first ally that Batman has.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking when I said that about Year One, but they do kind of tell you more about that.
So I think if we had read Year One and then come into this fresh, which no one in, the late 90s was doing, I guess, because it had been 10 years since Year One anyway. But if we had done that, if we'd kind of observed Jeff Loeb's narrative construction around this, that might have worked a little more for us. But
interesting.
It's still within the pages of this book, doesn't work, which is still, I think, a failure.
Yeah. What does work is the chilling statement from Bruce Wayne, "I will never forget the sound of his screaming."
Ugh.
And the way the panels fall apart.
Long memory.
Later, as the Gordons wait at the hospital with Gilda, Harvey escapes, stabbing his doctor. Carla Vitti sneaks into the coroner's office looking through the Holiday murder files, but Holiday catches her there and kills her.
Leaving
victim. Nothing, actually. Because victim. It's just a birthday.
Sure,
so what do you leave?
We had the cake.
What do you leave? A candle? Like a cupcake with a candle in it? A birthday card?
Issue 12, Labor Day.
Thank goodness. Gosh, we're so close.
Harvey Dent has been missing for nearly a month. He is seen hiding in the sewers. Dent meets Solomon Grundy, and it's great. I love it. I love it a lot. He compares himself to Grundy's resurrection. Can a man live 2 lives? And also a really great cut to Gordon saying, a double life.
Yes. I even like Dent giving the recitation of Solomon Grundy's.
Yeah, and he calms him down. He slowly sits down and gets chilled out.
It reminded me, of course, of Nat.
The lullaby.
It's pretty good.
I miss Marvel.
Gordon presents Batman with evidence that Dent was Holiday, a .22 pistol, and Carmine's ledger in his briefcase. Batman refuses to believe that the man they made a pact with could have done all Holiday did. Batman searches for Dent, asking Carmine if he knows anything. He doesn't know where Dent is and accuses Batman and the police of letting Holiday keep murdering because he was murdering Carmine's people. Do you know what my people called this past year? The Long Halloween.
It's a
credits.
Great line. It is starting to feel a little bit at this point as though Batman it's like he's playing an old early 90s adventure game. Like he knows that there is a puzzle to solve and he has a number of items. He doesn't know what to do with them. So he's just going from location to location, talking to everyone about everything.
Like attaching the candle to the cat so it runs over and burns the string, which then opens the door. He gets to the portcullis.
Trying every combination of nouns that he could think of and not actually advancing the plot terribly much. I think you're absolutely on the money, written, I think that there's an argument that Batman is kind of incidental to the unfolding of this
He's weighing down the story.
He really is.
Again, Catwoman is listening in. Batman confronts her, but she still won't give a straight answer to why she is around when Batman confronts Carmine every single time.
Yeah.
And here's why I'm going to talk about this, because this is never answered in this story.
No, it sure isn't.
Later, Loeb and Sale will create the Dark Victory story and the Catwoman Win in Rome story, which both take place at the same time, and inform us that Catwoman thinks that Carmine Falcone is her father. It's a weird. It's really weird to set up this question so strongly in this book and not at all even get a nod to why this is going on.
Yep.
It's very weird.
Because you're left to infer only that Catwoman, that Selina Kyle, does know more about Batman than she's letting on, I suppose.
Yeah,
and is just
she does make a reference that maybe she just likes being around Batman, but that doesn't make sense because she's only around when it's
so
with Carmine.
It means nothing.
Yeah.
Unnecessary, which is why I will say that Catwoman is completely unnecessary to this story. You can take her completely out.
Or make it her story. One of those two things.
Yes.
Batman visits Gilda, mentioning that there are metal filings in their basement vice, telling her how important it is that they find Harvey because he may be Holiday. Again, Batman's kind of a dick. You're missing your husband who's turned into a homicidal maniac. I need you to know that your husband's insane and we need to find him and bring him to justice. I know you're mourning, but I'm Batman. Also,
it's been like a month.
Take this opportunity to become a supervillain.
Yeah,
it'll be great.
I do like the quivering line of "Find my Harvey."
Yeah,
not this new Harvey, but my Harvey.
Yeah. Sorry, Gilda.
It's very good. Batman visits Calendar Man again for some reason, thinking he's going to get something this time, which he actually does this time.
No, he doesn't.
He thinks that Maroni will be the next victim of Holiday, and he's actually right about that.
Yeah,
it's Labor Day, and he still eludes you, doesn't she? Which is a good line.
Yeah.
Gordon and a large guard come for Maroni in his jail cell.
Very large.
Large
Large
like a
guard.
super buff guard.
This is a guard XL.
I actually kind of want to go online and see if I can find forums from this time to see what people were speculating about this large guard.
What a large guard you have.
What's up, large guard?
As they transport him to safety, Maroni that is, Holiday shows up, shooting and killing Maroni, shooting the guard in the chest multiple times, knocking him down, and finally aiming the gun at Gordon's head. Gordon's flashlight reveals Holiday to be Alberto Falcone on the last page.
Sure does. I was reading this in the trade and still had to flip back a few pages to be like, I know who this guy is. Like, I recognize him. Who is
the only thing that got me through was I was like, oh, the glasses. Yeah, no,
it's those glasses again. There they are again. And this brings us to our final issue, Punishment, which is what this whole story was for Sarah.
Series has been for me.
But we start with crime and we end with punishment.
Yeah, it's very nice. This is what we crime and punishment.
Oh, those aren't holidays.
Nope. Alberto tells Gordon he is Holiday as the fallen guard leaps onto him, knocking the gun out of his hand. The guard beats Alberto and reveals himself to be Batman.
It does feel a little like him being the mayor in the Lego Batman movie.
It does. Because he just like appears without the helmet on. All of a sudden, they don't show him taking off. He's just all of a sudden Batman.
Yeah. Also wearing the cowl under the helmet, which is okay, I guess.
Which you gotta imagine those ears just spring up.
Here's the thing. The suit doesn't give you powers, Batman/Bruce Wayne. You could have beat that guy up in your large guard outfit. You didn't need to do this.
He has to strike fear into these villains.
You know what strikes fear into the hearts of villains? Being beaten up by dudes.
Yeah, but he can only do that so much because Gordon's all about justice and tells him to stop and arrest
Jim
Alberto.
The only good man in Gotham.
Night.
Jim Gordon and Alfred Pennyworth, the only good men in Gotham.
Yep, they were both good men. Alberto confesses.
Good men.
Alberto confesses, saying that he faked his own death and was slowly taking out his father's enemies. He killed the coroner because he knew it was the wrong body in the grave and could have told other people, of course.
Sure.
Carmine visits his son, offering
didn't for months. Like, just didn't bother to mention that to anybody.
Well, he was probably like paid off, but he was worried that it was going to eventually come out. Carmine visits his son, offering to get him out of prison if he will confess to Maroni's murder only. But Alberto refuses, saying his father doesn't even know his own birthday. It's on a holiday. And he has made a name for himself, bigger than the Falcone name, that he is a part of the new crime lords, the freaks that his family hates so much.
Sure.
He's also wearing cast because Batman defo broke
both of his arms.
Yeah.
Because I'm Batman.
Multiple places, presumably.
Batman struggles with the guilt of having decided that Dent must have been Holiday. The Gordons visit Gilda on Halloween, and Dent visits Arkham Asylum, deciding justice for each inmate with the flip of a coin, deciding to let them out or leave them in. Calendar Man doesn't win the coin toss.
The quiet tragedy of Calendar Man. Like, dude has had a tough year.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Horrible mass murderer. Like, I do understand that. But also, like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Just 3 visits from Batman and then not being let out of Arkham. Apparently, the only villain not let out of Arkham.
Well, the only one who has also appeared in the story.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Narratively.
Condiment King still hanging out in Arkham. Perfectly safe. Killer Croc still there.
Bane, Man Bat.
Hold on, flip up coin again.
Best out of 3.
Carmine throws a fit at his home over what has happened when his guards start laughing uncontrollably. In his office, he finds Joker, Scarecrow, Mad Hatter, Penguin, which Penguin
Yo,
hasn't
I
shown
have a question. Where the fuck was Penguin in this comic? Why is he here?
I have a question. What up with Solomon Grundy also?
Yeah, Solomon Grundy's here because Two-Face lulled him and became best friends, I guess.
Yeah.
And Catwoman, led by Harvey Dent, who was there with the .22 pistol to bring justice to Falcone. Batman bursts into the room, systematically taking out all the villains, with Catwoman invading him and Two-Face taking Carmine hostage, to this great dialogue of his father's talking about surgery, which I'm just going to read real quick because it is so perfect to a fight scene. When faced with a seemingly insurmountable problem, your only option is to act swiftly, some might even say irrationally, removing the most dangerous elements first and methodically attacking each subsequent challenge in a separate but deliberate manner.
So let's just note, when Thomas Wayne was performing surgery on you, the first thing he did was act irrationally. Hey, Bruce, the apple hasn't fallen far from the tree, my son.
My father also put on a bat suit when he did surgery.
Yeah, no, Thomas Wayne straight up attacked your body with his scalpel.
To put fear into the sickness that was inside of you.
Yep.
That's how you deal with cancer.
Viruses were a superstitious and cowardly lot.
His scalpel had little bat ears.
It was the bat scalpel.
Throw it from across the room.
Oh, he sure did. Bat scalpel.
Bat dad.
I do really
This is rapidly approaching Dr. McNinja. If you guys haven't read Dr. McNinja online.
What?
Have you never read Dr. McNinja?
No time. No time.
When we're done with this, I'm showing you a webcomic, Dr. McNinja. Go Google it right now. It's perfect. It's about a ninja who's also a doctor. It's pretty great.
I do really like this moment where Batman asks Catwoman, whose side are you on? And she says, same side I'm always on.
That's the Catwoman answer?
Yeah. Meow, my side, meow, meow.
Meow, my side, meow, meow.
Okay, so let's break this down. There were 2 holidays, 3 holidays, 4 holidays.
Hold on, let's hold this out just slightly longer because I do have some more to talk about as I get to it, and then this is going to be a really important question, and I have it all laid out, so we can definitely go over it.
Thank God, because that I was so mad.
But I do want to talk about this next page because I think it's really good. It does go black and white again, where Harvey Dent has Carmine hostage, and Batman is dealing with what's going on here. And I might just read through this very quickly.
Sure. On this super regular 6-panel.
Yeah, actually, do you want to read Two-Face and I'll read Batman?
Sure, absolutely, yeah. Again and again, the courts will send them to prison or Arkham. They will escape, and we will have the same problem again and again.
Harvey
is gone. Two-Face is more like it, don't you think?
If you pull that trigger, how are you different from the Roman?
That's Jim Gordon talking. You know the system doesn't work. That justice can be decided like the flip of a coin. And
as he flips
the coin goes up, the scarred side comes down. Yes.
Here's the thing. Harvey Dent has a point.
Yeah, he's not wrong. They will escape from Arkham Asylum.
They are constantly walking right out of Arkham Asylum. It's like minimum security asylum, Arkham Asylum.
We don't talk about it a lot. They call it Arkham Asylum. It's actually just a daycare.
Oh.
you have to volunteer to go in, and you can just check yourself out anytime you want.
Batman just drops all the kids off.
Yes,
this has to be
for 4 hours. And
this has got to be included in the JL8 webcomic somewhere.
Oh my
at some
gosh,
point.
yes. JL8 is so good.
It is a fantastic webcomic. Now that Two-Face has been fully introduced, let me go ahead and run through his quick origin here. Two-Face is a Batman villain created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane. First appeared in Detective Comics 66, 1942. He typically makes all his important decisions by flipping a coin. Frank Miller's Year One story gave him his story of being an ally to Batman before his incident, like we see in this story. And in 2009, Two-Face was ranked number 12 on IGN's top 100 comic book villains of all time.
We really are going to visit this list.
Thank you, Frank Miller, because that's basically 45 years of Two-Face being not terribly interesting or important in any way.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
Frank
true.
Miller completely recontextualized the character by making Harvey Dent more important.
Yeah, that's right. Dent shoots Carmine twice in the head, repeating his line at the beginning from the first holiday murder. If you ask me, couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, which is a great end cap or bookend on that. Catwoman tries to subdue Sophia, but she falls out of a window to her death in the struggle. Batman tries to talk sense into Dent, but Two-Face tricks him and pistol whips him and gets away. It is interesting to me looking at this, knowing that Catwoman was there because she thought that Carmine was her father, but then letting Carmine be killed by Dent and not caring, it's weird.
Yeah.
So it works better not knowing that in the story because of this moment right here.
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, and I like that narratively better anyway because it's not about Carmine Falcone. It is about Batman. It is about Catwoman and Batman.
Yes, absolutely. Two-Face visits his crooked assistant, knowing it was him who gave Maroni the acid. He flips the coin and shoots Vernon, leaving the coin and pistol for Batman to find. The bat signal summons Batman to GCPD, where Two-Face says he did what was needed to be done. Gordon says he betrayed everything he believed in, and Two-Face says not everything, turning himself in to let the system decide his fate.
I like this. Actually,
I think it's really cool. I really like the panel where it's the three of them talking again, which mimics the panel like way back from issue 1. I love this. Also, again, he's going to walk right out of Arkham Asylum.
And begin his life of crime, robbing banks and such.
I trust this system to do the right thing with me.
Which has put me in Arkham Asylum until I conveniently walk out of the completely open door.
I don't have money for an Uber to the other side of Gotham City, so can you arrest me, charge me, convict me, and send me to Arkham? That would be great. It's
my favorite taco place is like outside of Arkham Asylum.
Two Sides Taco. As he is being taken away, Dent mentions that there were actually 2 holiday killers. Gordon and Batman decide that he's fascinated with the number 2, obviously, and probably just means that himself and Alberto, since Dent killed Carmine on Halloween.
Yeah, I don't love this.
This is such bullshit.
Okay, this is Batman and Jim Gordon being like,
world's greatest detective. Well, he's obsessed with too, I guess.
Yeah. Fine.
It's been a year. I'm so tired.
Jim, I'm issue 13.
I just want to go home.
I'm so sick of this story. Gordon and Batman realize that they have fulfilled their pact, but they wonder if it was worth it, which is a really nice panel. I like the wide panel with Batman standing there questioning, was it worth it? That's actually our Twitter header right now.
That's excellent.
Stunning. And speaks to that noir thing, right? This idea of this Pyrrhic victory that, technically Batman and Jim Gordon have won. They have accomplished their goal.
Not really. Everyone died.
Exactly right.
Right.
They
was
did
it
what
worth
they
it?
set out to
We'll
do.
never know.
They lost so much more.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that defines noir. This constant decline into villainy and awfulness. Yeah.
I do really appreciate how this story ends out here, as we're going to see another 3-beat. At home, Gordon resolves to continue making Gotham a better city, saying, I believe in Gotham City. Batman restates his promise that he made to his parents and the importance of what he does in the city, saying, I believe in Batman. On Christmas at Arkham, Holiday and Calendar Man argue and they're facing cells, which is pretty brilliant that they put them in facing cells.
Great.
I like that.
Great.
And Two-Face thinks of his wife. Meanwhile, his wife Gilda is packing up boxes in their basement. She burns a hat, a coat, a baby bottle nipple, and a .22 pistol. That's not going to burn Gilda. In their furnace.
That's not how guns work.
Admitting that she had taken her husband's coat and hat, read his files, and used the information to start the killings in order to get more time with Harvey, to start a family like he had promised. She claims the killings up until New Year's Eve, where she believed Harvey had taken over, finishing the job for the same purpose, to quickly get more time with her and start a family. She says no one will ever find out that it wasn't Alberto because they don't have Harvey's help. She says he is her Apollo. He can do no wrong, and ends, I believe, in Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Okay, technically I like the construction. Like I can see how the turn is well presented. I don't love that Gilda Dent murders a bunch of people because she's baby crazy, and you know how women get.
Well, you know how women get.
Yeah,
I guess.
Not like a super big fan of that.
Maybe she was crazy to begin with. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's
Like,
possible, but then we
there
could
were
have-
3 or 4 holiday killers.
Okay. Here's the options.
Let's break it
Thank
down.
you.
There are
Please.
multiple options. We are presented with the following possibilities. 1, Gilda is Holiday up until Alberto Falcone fakes his death on New Year's, at which point he takes over and ultimately confesses to all the murders. 2, Harvey is Holiday throughout the entire story, and Alberto only confesses as a way to gain credibility. Harvey's comment that there were 2 Holiday killers is correct. Harvey himself and then Two-Face. Gilda confesses as a way to cope with Harvey's actions only. 3. Alberto is Holiday throughout the entire story, and Gilda's confession at the end is simply the rantings of a woman experiencing severe trauma. 4. Gilda is Holiday up until Alberto Falcone, who was almost murdered by Harvey on New Year's, but ultimately survives, at which point he takes over the Holiday role. 5. Gilda is Holiday up until Alberto Falcone, who was almost murdered by Harvey on New Year's Eve, but ultimately survives. Harvey, however, continues the Holiday killings from that point forward, even though Alberto shows up and confesses to the murders. Given that Gilda's confession takes place at the conclusion of the story, it seems unlikely to be just a red herring to me, though.
Yeah.
Because it just seems like a weird place to throw out that. I'm willing to take Gilda's confession at face value that she was Holiday up until Alberto Falcone died on New Year's Eve, quote unquote. This leads to plausibility issues, though, because Gilda was bedridden at the hospital when some of those murders were committed.
Sure.
Even so, I still can't believe that Gilda was a red herring, and I have to kind of go with the benefit of the doubt. There is some kind of hints there because she does talk about how the doctors don't know what they're talking about when she gets up, and he's like, "You need to be sitting." He's like, "No, those doctors don't know what they're talking about. Like, I clearly could sneak out anytime I want."
Yeah, that beat when they go to the new house and she's in her wheelchair, and then Dent sees the Joker in the living room or whatever, and Gilda just quietly goes upstairs. Like, not in her wheelchair. She just walks upstairs and is clearly...
So I think that I could see this multiple ways. I could see Dent actually having tried to kill Alberto, possibly, but I don't know how he would have gotten on the boat unnoticed. No, that's the thing that bothers me.
Gilda.
But apparently he can put on the mask. So I don't know. But to me, the one that really makes sense to me is Gilda did do what she said she did, and Alberto did take over from there, faking his own death.
Because confession at face value, I think that we're supposed to.
The murder panel with Alberto never actually shows us what we see in a lot of the others with the gun actually shooting him. We just see a gunshot, not actually shooting him.
Exactly.
And he's not bleeding or anything. He just holds himself, and then the next thing you see is the water with blood in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that works for me. Gilda is the Holiday until Alberto is the Holiday.
Sarah, do you agree with that?
Sure, yeah, whatever.
But it is also interesting to point out, did Calendar Man know? Because he said she and
He's switching out his pronouns.
Very much so kind of
Calendar Man
pointed toward
didn't
this.
know. Does he have psychic abilities?
Well, the thing is that by pretty much any measure, I guess the first time that Batman goes to visit Calendar Man, we're supposedly only dealing with Gilda, I suppose.
Yeah, there is no he in that situation.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I like the possibility.
No, I think it's nonsense.
It is pretty interesting though to look at the way he says things like he likes the attention, and it's almost like, oh, he knows that there's a she murdering for a he. I don't know. It's just very interesting the way he words it. My question really is, do you think this is a solvable mystery? Because from what I have heard, this was presented as a solvable mystery that you could solve as you read along.
Absolutely
I don't think that's true.
No,
there are hints. You can definitely read back and see some hints because as we've talked about, but I don't think that you could figure this out from the beginning.
No, I don't think so.
It's not there.
Just to clarify, Batman first goes to Calendar Man in Arkham in issue 3, which is the Christmas Day episode, the Christmas Day issue, and then Alberto dies in the New Year's Eve issue, which is the subsequent issue. So at that point, when Calendar Man is already switching his pronouns, according to this theory, there is only one the Holiday, and it is Gilda Dent. So I don't know, but I do like the layers of subtlety that are kind of layered in there. That works pretty well for me.
Do you think that it's an interesting story idea to leave it this vague in the story to where people to this day are still arguing about it, or do you think that that's just bad writing?
I kind of wish that we had wrapped it up a little more neatly. Clearly, to me, the intent of Gilda's confession right here at the end of the book, it is in the place that a wrap-up confession would be in a story of this type.
Sure.
And I'm inclined to believe that it is true, so it works well enough. But yeah, I don't know for sure. This, I think, is part of the problem of this story, which is that it just doesn't have quite as much focus as I would like it to have.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
I agree as well.
I think just a greater sense of purpose, which is, of course, so notable in Superman for All Seasons, which we discussed so recently. That has so much focus that it is almost spare. It's a muscular story.
Yeah.
This, to me, doesn't quite work. Sarah, closing thoughts?
The art was good. I can see why it won awards. Not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really think that this is the story of three men who want justice coming together, and one of them pays the ultimate price. The relationship between Batman and Gordon will forever be seen through the lens of that.
That's the other thing, is that I really like Harvey Dent as an innocent victim of this. That he is corrupted by Gotham. He is corrupted by
he wanted justice so much, and it broke him because he couldn't get it.
Peered into the abyss, as Nietzsche would have it. It really, really works for me. Seeing Harvey Dent in that mold allows me to believe in him, which that kind of thwarted belief and thwarted hope is something that I always find inspiring in stories. So yeah, for me, that works much better. If that's the case, hey, you should have paid more attention to Gilda. Like play fair with your audience all the way through.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes I think that the leaning on Harvey Dent as a suspect is just too heavy-handed.
Yes.
The weird trying to create a shadow around Bruce Wayne is also like too heavy-handed and ultimately comes to nothing at all. So there's some of the structural stuff there doesn't quite work, but thematically and purposefully and certainly aesthetically, I find this book to be completely compelling. Hey, you guys, what are we doing next week?
That's a good
week
question.
3 of Bat Month.
Next week, we are doing Tim Burton's 1989 Batman film, which is very fun. Very fun.
No Joe Chill. This is a Joe Chill free zone for reasons which will become clear. Sarah, have you seen the 1989 Batman?
I think once when I was like 7.
Oh, man. Okay. I hope you enjoy it because it's a lot of fun. I've seen this movie probably 300 or 400 times.
Is this the one with Nicole Kidman, or is that the other one?
We will not be talking about the Nicole Kidman Batman.
Oh, that's right. That's George Clooney. Huh? This is the one with Michelle Pfeiffer.
This is the one with
This is the one
Jack
before
Nicholson.
Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yes.
But
clearly I know
might
nothing.
talk about that one too.
We'll
see.
We'll see. Yeah.
Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
I like Danny DeVito a lot.
Sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode of Excelsior. If you enjoy what we do, if you want to support us, if you want to help us continue making the show and do more stuff like this in this vein, you can head on over to patreon.com/Common Room Radio, where you can kick us $1 a month or whatever you can afford, and you get exclusive access to things like gag reels. There may be beatboxing and me rapping about shakes on there, so check that out. You can find us on Twitter at Excelsior Cast. You can find me at Elsa Grab the Salt.
You can find me at Paper Bullets.
And I'm at Flesh Eater. And you can also hear more from me from the Read Brave Comics podcast, where I talk about what's new this week in comics and sometimes interview people and sometimes have some fun co-hosts.
It's a really great show. You should definitely check that out.
Yes.
Read Brave Comics. Go Google it right now or put it into your podcast app of choice.
And once again, from Common Room Radio, I'm Sarah K. Bazant.
I'm Alistair Stevens.
And I'm Vinton Bain, and this town isn't big enough for 2 homicidal maniacs.
Oh my God.
Excelsior!